Members of Council, we have quorum. This meeting is now resumed. I will take the release of Member Holtz. I don't see anybody putting their name up. Release of Member Holtz. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would actually just request to vary the order paper, and that would be to make the member's item that I just introduced around free-floating car share, to do that item directly after the other public works items. And I do that because I understand our General Manager of Transportation may or may not be able to be here, and I wouldn't want that to wait until the very end if that's all right.
Yeah, well, yeah, we only have 4 items, so I was hoping to be finished in the next 10 minutes. So, I mean, that's what I was hoping on. There's only 4 items left. No, I know, I'm just, okay. All right, can you put the names up on, I guess nobody wants to release anything. Councillor Holliday to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. I just rise in opposition to the motion placed by Councillor Fletcher. This item was discussed and debated at committee. The finding of the committee was to take out the dollars from this particular report with a very simple request that those dollars be otherwise allocated to the street art program. So with that same money that was there, it may as well paint utility boxes or create a mural. And the point that I made when I made this statement at committee was the report itself shows that there is very little durable value to these murals. They're gone within a number of months. They didn't provide any traffic calming effects as what was originally thought or hoped out of them. And all of us knew, because of our understanding and involvement in this process, that it's a rather complex one. It's a fairly large undertaking that groups do commit to. They do a great job. They come together. They create a process. They create an artwork. They go through community consultation. They organize an event on this. And one way or another, $500 isn't going to really change the outcome of those events that are planned. And this money is just better spent in other places in the program. And, you know, I hope you'll just sustain the committee recommendations, because I thought they were thoughtfully placed, because we do have some experience on this file. Thank you.
Councillor Palacio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do support the recommendation from Councillor Fletcher. I think the recommendation is very modest and in relation to what's happening out there. And I'm very delighted and proud at the same time to say that I play a key role in terms of implementing the graffiti management plan and City of Toronto, as well as I'm very delighted that I play a role in implementing the pilot project as it relates to the road murals. Something new, something that it really embraces the arts community out there. It's during the summer months, for example, these programs started in my neighborhood in Ward 17 during the summer months, during the street parties. And it was amazing to see how many people, how many hundreds of children and parents, friends, neighbors, politicians, they came together to help out with painting the murals and whatever else. Something new, something exciting once again, that brought forward something new, innovative ideas. Is somehow it tells our neighborhood's story and connects with the neighborhood beautification programs, and also attracts the private and the public sector when it comes to be part of the process. So all of that has been a great thing. So painting these murals on the roads, and I recall that when the pilot project came to this city council, Madam Speaker, I can
okay, members, please, can you keep it down?
Thank you. Painting these murals on the streets, it was so exciting, especially during summer months, when we had the street parties that people were literally and waiting for that to happen, just to go out there, start painting it, and all of a sudden to create something beautiful that beautify our neighborhoods at little cost, at very little cost. When the pilot project came to this council, there was all that fear-mongering at one point. What's going to happen? All the pollution that's going to create, the septic issues and whatever else. To the contrary, actually what happened with it is it's something that it really creates beauty within the streets. It slows down the traffic when people are just driving by. They start looking at it, and it's a great, great deterrent against speeding. And at the end, it connects people, and it creates beauty in our neighborhoods. That's one of the reasons that I wholeheartedly support the motion by Councilor Fletcher, and I think this is one step closer in terms of working together with our neighbors, our children, our arts community. All of that's great for the city. Thank you.
Okay, if we can put the motion on the screen for the second time. All in favor, recorded vote.
Councillor Rosemary, please.
The amendment carries 25 to 10.
Item as amended, all in favor? Okay, there was something wrong with the county. I noticed that on the screen it said Mayor Tory, but Mayor Tory's not sitting at his desk. But he wasn't there. No, but it had him that he voted. Oh, he was here? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I seen his name as being counted. Okay, item is amended. Item is amended, on favor. Recorded. You know, I guess it's been a long day. Item is amended. Yes, somebody asked for recorded vote.
Councillor Wong-Tam, please. Councillor Carmichael Greb, Councillor Shiner.
Francis, let's get this meeting over. Councillor De Bearmaker, please.
The item as amended carries 33 to 2.
All right. Where is Councillor Layton? Oh, he's doing an interview. Councillor Layton, you mentioned that MM 4154, you just wanted to release it? Okay, so this is members' motion MM 4154. Point of order. Yes, Councillor Holliday?
Madam Speaker, like we literally just debated the file on car share last council meeting. I don't understand how this can be in order that we can bring the debate back to this next council meeting.
Okay, let's hold the item down. Huh? The recommendation is that you got it before you, that to further consult and report back to the June council meeting.
No, it's new information.
It's new information.
Because one of the major companies is no longer in existence.
One of the major companies is no longer in existence, so this is new information. Okay, Councillor Holliday. Yeah.
So just to confirm that because there's possibility of new information, it can come back. All right, so perhaps my question was maybe more rhetorical in nature, but I'll accept. Thank you for your ruling.
Council is not in the same.
Okay, so council is not in the position on today as we made in a month ago. So are we ready to just release
Can I
this?
speak to it? No.
Yeah, speak to it and vote. Yeah. This is on.
Councillor Holliday to speak.
Thank you. I'll just reiterate my comment that I can't understand the logic of taking another crack at a debate from 1 month ago. I would be amazed at what new information would come after, you know, a year or two of extensive policy analysis to finally get a report here that we debated for hours to try to figure out a solution that worked, that balanced the needs of the residents in the neighborhood and their need to park, and that of supporting the car share industry. And now, because a particular company is leaving the city, we're going to reopen the debate. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I don't support this. I don't understand why we would just rehash an argument we just had.
Okay. Oh, are these all okay. Okay, on the item, recorded vote. Can you clear the screen, please?
Councillor Perks, please.
Councillor Pillion, please.
The item carries 34-4.
Councillor Troisi, would you like to release your member's motion 4155?
55, yes.
Okay. On favor? Carried. Our next item is page 2, PW 29.6, next steps on traffic safety measures. Councillor Fletcher, you held the item down. Do you have questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I do. Oh, well, put your name up.
Okay, if anybody has questions, please put your name up on the screen. Councillor Robinson, question.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll be very quick. To transportation staff, and I'm going to ask Ashley Curtis this question specifically. Immediately after our very troubled Public Works meeting, where we had very serious quorum issues, in fact, we couldn't even convene till the afternoon, and even then we had constant threats of losing quorum when we were dealing with very important things. you spoke to me after that meeting immediately and said we had missed the moratorium piece in the motion related to this item. Is that correct?
Through the Speaker, that's correct.
And after that meeting, then you came to my office, I think last week, to also, again, talk about how we make sure we get this moratorium piece addressed for something that the Mayor, I know, is very, very big supporter of, is the automated speed enforcement, etc. So we missed this piece at PWIC, and we talked about making sure at Council today that we make sure it's part of the motions.
That's correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. To either Ashley or Barbara Gray, and I'm not trying to be critical or mean-spirited, but would you agree that there were some shortcomings with this particular report and it was a bit confusing?
Through you, I think it's reasonable to say that there were some challenges with the development of this report, and therefore it came out as not as clear-cut as we would like it to be in the future.
Yeah, so it was a bit unclear, and I mean it is a complicated issues, and it does have a big impact on local communities and us as local councillors. So yes, it wasn't an easy one to navigate. I'm going to be moving a motion today about the schools piece and making sure that comes back to PWIC. I think next month, hopefully, as soon as you can get it back to PWIC. Could you tell me a little bit more about the schools and how we want to do that right across the whole City of Toronto?
Through you, Speaker, yes, absolutely. So we had identified through one of the accelerations of the Vision Zero program, the significant interest in Council had directed us to do further acceleration and look at what we could do pretty immediately to make improvements for safety in school zones, in addition to what we've been working on to date. And so one of the things we want to do is identify at each of the 754 schools in the city a community safety zone boundary that would allow us to go beyond the school zone, which is 150 meters in front of the school, to address some of the more traveled roadways and be able to come forward with a more comprehensive set of safety improvements, including speed legends and signage, and some capital improvements were necessary in terms of narrowing the street, etc. And we wanted to do that at those community safety zones. And we are certainly happy. We've mapped sort of our proposal for where those community safety zones would be located, and so we're hopeful that Council will encourage us to come back to talk a little bit more about that at the June PWIC meeting.
Okay, so we can expect, and if I move a motion, we can expect in June at the Public Works Committee meeting a school safety zone / community safety zone across the city, an implementation plan, a full-out implementation plan. That's achievable?
Through you, certainly the locations that we are proposing is what we will come back with, as well as the toolkit of options for those schools.
Excellent news. Thank you.
I thought this was going to be a quick item. Councillor Doucette, look at all the names.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It could be a quick item, but this is really serious. This is a very important topic, and I am glad it's before us. And I do apologise I wasn't able to get to Public Works meeting. I had wanted to. So can you just walk me through, if either I notice or I have a resident come to me and say they have concerns of traffic on a street, whether it's a school zone or not a school zone, am I correct that I need to get a petition from X number of residents of that street? That petition goes to transportation. Transportation then does ask for a traffic study. The traffic study results then have to be analysed. That analysed report then comes to Community Council, where Community Council decides whether they put in traffic calming or safety. There's a warrant process involved. Two questions. How long a process is that? And is part of what you're looking at trying to review the warrant process? So that's sort of a double-ended question.
Through you, Madam Speaker, your description is correct. There's an opportunity for a poll in there as well after.
Oh, right. Forgot that
Council. We did a timeline and identified 16 and a half months typically. Wow. As the time frame by which all of those steps take. And your second question
was the warrant process. When?
Oh yes.
What? are you reviewing the warrant process? Because it seemed that our residents come to us and say, you know, we have this issue on our street, either in a school zone or not in a school zone, and yet the report comes back and says, well, no, you're not warranted.
Oh, right. Through you, yes, we are, and we did a preliminary review of the warrants, including the traffic calming warrants, that earlier this year, and wanted to apply a much more stringent Vision Zero lens to those warrants. And so I've sent my staff back to do some additional work on those warrants, and so they will not be coming back as a full package to council until the first quarter of 2019.
And Vision Zero doesn't just qualify within school zones, is that correct?
That is correct.
So, if, for instance, I have an intersection where the vehicles are speeding through, making right turns when they shouldn't be, or it's not safe for pedestrians when cars are making right turns, I can send that to Roger and your department and ask you to look at that under Vision Zero as well.
Yes, that's a very good point, Councillor. Vision Zero applies to the city overall. This particular discussion around community safety zones right now is mostly focused around school zones.
Perfect.
But our broader Vision Zero program applies to the city overall.
So my understanding from reading this report, this is my last question, my understanding from reading this report was you were trying to get away from those 16, 18-month process to allow staff and councillors to move forward quicker with safety issues around school zones. Is that really what this came down to?
So we were actually responding to a request from Councillor Kirgianis and the Mayor to look at how we can streamline the traffic calming process. We came back with some recommendations and were asked to go back to do a little bit more analysis. But yes, the goal is to streamline that process and be able to apply a package of traffic calming improvements where appropriate in school zones was what we started with, because we figured we could have that conversation around school zones and Vision Zero at this time.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff. As it stands right now, we're looking at a year and a half procedure in order to put traffic calming measures in front of a school or in a particular area.
Through you, the process that we identified that Councillor Doucette described, yes, is about a 16-and-a-half-month process for traffic calming on an appropriate street.
Now, with this new process that you're looking to do in front of schools, what would the time length be?
Well, through you, Madam Speaker, that's what we were asked to come back and do, was to look at how we could streamline that process. And we had made some recommendations that are in the original report, including minimizing either the petition or the poll, reducing the time frames, taking down the percentage of positive responses to polling, a number of items. And we believe we have a little bit more work to do in order to come back with a more fulsome report to Council on a revised process for traffic calming.
If you have a particular area that every house is signed on, every house except one, would you consider that to be adequate in order for traffic calming measures to go on, or you still suggest that we still have to go to the poll?
I believe that decision is up to the Community Council, and I believe that the clerks do the poll and that it requires a 50+1% positive response rate.
Okay, let me put the question one more time, and maybe the city clerk can also answer. If you have a particular area that every house is signed on except one, do we still need to do a poll? Okay. And if that poll is done and it comes back negative, or if the poll, let's say, if the community still wants to go ahead and do this without the poll, can it be done?
Through you, not at the moment.
So the poll is mandatory. Am I correct in this?
At this time, the poll is mandatory, yes.
Period, full stop, end of story. You cannot circumvent the poll.
Well, it depends.
No. My question is, at Community Council, can we circumvent the poll? Yes or no? I need a clear answer on this, folks.
Yes.
I'm not getting it from staff. I might be getting it from the Speaker. I'm not getting it from staff.
Well, okay.
I need this on the record.
Our understanding is that if the proposal goes to the Community Council, and community council approves it, it has
Without
to...
the poll.
No, then it would go to poll, yes?
Sorry, so through the speaker, so traffic calming proposal is initiated, we do our warrant review, we develop some proposals, we then bring a report to community council. If community council like those proposals, we then have to go out, or clerks then have to go out and do a poll. That poll has to have a response rate of 50% plus 1, and then of those respondents, 60% need to be in favour of it for that then to move forward. If that then moves forward, the bylaw then comes to the next community council.
Right, so community council cannot circumvent the polling request. Am I correct?
My understanding is they can't waive the polling requirement.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we can get a clear answer to this, because this is going to hit us in a couple of days. We had a little boy that died. The community went out and got signatures from every single house. They're expecting that we're going to be back on June 16th, and they will be getting speed humps. Are you telling me that we have to do a poll? Am I correct in this?
So through the speaker, that's my understanding based on...
Well, folks, I appreciate the understanding. Can we get clarification? Because when I stand, and I've been told, yes, you can do it.
Well, point of order, Councillor DiCiano.
Madam Speaker, I don't even know if this is a point of order, but
so why are you asking?
I think I can answer the question very quickly. So if 51% of people sign the petition on the street,
that's not the case.
You get the poll. When the poll comes back to community council, if the warrants are not met, community council can override and bring it in.
That's not a point of order, Councillor.
I know. It's just that's how it works.
Well,
No, it isn't. You're not sure about this.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Karygiannis, continue.
Madam Speaker, I'm sorry for bringing this, but if it goes to community council, and at that point in time I get up and I said, let's put the speed humps in, and I'm pushing for the speed humps, and my colleagues agree with it, do we still need to go to do a poll?
Not if we do what we're doing today.
Our understanding is you do, and one of the proposals that we had made initially was that community council would have the authority to waive that poll, and that's one of the reasons we need to go back to
so
clerks
as it
and
stands right now, we
look
need a
through
poll
that.
right now, this very moment.
Right now, that's our understanding. Unless
All right.
clerks has a different understanding, I don't have a different understanding of it than that.
Madam Speaker, can we get clarification from the clerks, please?
Okay, clarification from the clerk. I know.
It's not, but I got a young man that died, and if you don't understand this, I'm sorry. And my community is screaming, and I want to get clarification. Simple. Very simple.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But, Councillor.
Madam Chair, I'm looking for...
No, I know. We're going to get clarification, but just also for clarification to you is that if they're going to put speed humps on the street, it doesn't happen in 1 month.
I understand that.
Like it takes months to put speed humps on a street. Sometimes, because they have to hire a contractor. I've been waiting 2 years for speed humps, so you definitely won't get it for next month. So let's get the clerk to respond to the poll. The requirement.
This is a matter for transportation staff. What we do in clerks is conduct the poll and follow the process that the staff provide. And that is their policy, council's policy. And so they should be answering the question on the policy.
And our understanding of that policy is that currently now there is a poll required once council makes that approval. And one of the recommendations we made in our paper here that we're discussing right now is to give council the authority to waive that polling requirement. But that is not the current policy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burnside, question. Councillor Burnside?
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to transportation. Do you base your decisions on evidence?
Evidence. Through you, we do our best to base our decisions on evidence.
Are you a lawyer or something?
Yeah. Aspiring. So, sorry, what was the answer?
I said we do our best to base our decisions
Okay.
on data and evidence whenever we can. Whenever we have that data and evidence available, we use it.
Okay. Is speed the biggest issue in terms of deaths in the city?
Speed is amongst the biggest issues in terms of outcomes for people who are hit. They're hit at a higher speed. They are much more likely to be seriously injured or killed.
Yeah, I'm only talking, right now I'm just talking about deaths. Okay. How many deaths were result in excessive speed in last year? Out of this, I think there were something like 63 deaths.
Speeding.
Could you put my it on hold, please?
In 2017, we had 63 fatalities related to roadway impacts. I can't tell you the specific number of those that were related to speed. The police investigation reports would have given some indication of when speed was an issue or other factors were an issue.
Okay, so respectfully, how would you told me that speed was one of the biggest issues, but you don't know how many, and respectfully, how many deaths had to do with excessive speed, so I'm a little confused.
I am looking at the table that we have in terms of fatalities for the year, and that table does not summarize the cause of those deaths. I would assume, we do have that information, I would assume that the bulk of them have been caused either by speed or by distraction.
Okay, well, I'll actually tell you, I did, from my analysis, there were 5 deaths as a result of excessive speed. One was impaired, so I think we could probably say, let's say a 4, even 5. Would turning not be an issue? Vehicles turning, inattentive drivers, would these not be, whatever the issue, would you not agree that maybe there are other issues involved here?
There are usually a range of issues in any crash, and speed is usually a factor. Even in turning situations where people speed up to make a left turn or a right turn.
But a speed limit change isn't going to affect that, right?
Sometimes the speed limit change can affect it. As you and I have discussed before, speed limit changes really only have an impact when the road is designed to that.
Okay, so that's my next question. You know where I'm going. So simply changing the speed limit, and I'll even concede the point that speed's an issue. I don't think it's the biggest issue. I think there are other issues, and I think we're a little too focused on one issue. But that being said, if simply changing the speed limit doesn't necessarily change behavior, would you agree?
As I've said before, I believe that there's a combination of factors that changes behavior. Speed limits, when the road is not designed to that appropriate speed, is not going to capture as many people as certainly when the road is designed for the speed that we intend to have.
Okay, so I'll rephrase that. When you've looked at some roads before and after the speed limit was changed from 40 or 50 to 30. What's your data show you on in terms of compliance?
You can answer it if you know. 1 second.
Well, in principle. Through the chair. So basically, the preliminary findings from the study that we've done basically indicate that people have a tendency to drive as per the design of the road conditions. So if the road is designed to 50 kilometers per hour, they're going to continue to drive at 50 kilometers per hour.
Okay, thank you. So the short answer is simply changing the speed limit without doing anything else really has no effect. Correct? Okay, well, I'll take that as yes, only because my time is moving on. In terms of overall, out of the 63 deaths, how many were in school zones?
1.
Okay.
In 2017.
Okay, so if speed is an issue, and so we have 62 deaths, speed's an issue, simply doing enforcement or having photo radar, as it were, in a school zone is really going to have next to no impact. Is that correct?
Through you, I think our general perspective on Vision Zero is we don't want to wait for a fatality or tragedy to happen, and we know that speed has an impact. We know that people's behavior around school zones, and also, probably to your point, maybe not asked yet, but around seniors, where we really see the most significant impact on seniors, is that there are unpredictable behaviors, perhaps people dropping off and picking up, especially in school zones, and it's one of the reasons why managing speed in those school zones is so critical.
Okay, I guess, but my actual point, and I'll ask you if you agree with this, is that simply enforcing in a school zone, absolutely we want to be proactive, but in terms of the overall picture and the quote-unquote Vision Zero, it's going to have negligible effect if we don't create a number of community safety zones.
The goal of Vision Zero is to try to get our number of people impacted by roadway impacts to zero, and so we have to be planning not only for the numbers that we have today, but also to ensure that we can prevent any impacts from happening in the future. School zones are a location, senior zones are a location, and certainly higher speed corridors are a location as well.
Wouldn't you agree that anywhere is a location?
No, I would say that road design has a huge amount to do with that, and I would say that destinations and land use has a huge amount to do with that as well.
Okay, and then my last question. In terms of Vision Zero, there are essentially 3-4 elements: changing some rules, changing road design, education, the last one being enforcement. Does that kind of make sense?
The 4 that we've articulated are engineering, education, enforcement, and engagement.
Okay, so enforcement's where I'm going
and
with this.
Engagement is
okay, what's the level of enforcement from the Toronto Police?
We've had a really good partnership with the Toronto Police. They understand and know our data, and they go out and tailor their enforcement to places where we see
but that's great answer, but that doesn't tell me what that enforcement is.
What the level of enforcement? I don't know what's the level of enforcement.
Okay, let me ask you this. How many traffic officers are there actually doing enforcement?
I don't know the answer to that question. I know that recently we had, what are the Scarborough divisions? We had all the Scarborough divisions on the speed enforcement blitz, so we've done activities like blitzes before where we've seen a
But if enforcement's an element, would you
Yep.
should we not know what that enforcement level is?
We can certainly get that information from,
Okay,
from the police.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. Next on the list to ask questions of staff is Councillor Davis.
Okay. Hold on. So I'm trying to understand, 2, 4, and 6 were referred to you, and 1, 3, and 5 were referred to you. The original recommendations. 2, 4, and 6 were referred back to you, and that has to do with lifting the moratorium, delegating authority around speed changes, restrictions, etc., in a community safety zone to you, and the third was these 4 temporary positions. They were all referred back, but I gather from what I heard from the chair, she intends to put them back in.
Through you, that's correct, with the exception of number 4,
okay,
which is the one that talks about speed, and the original report articulates an interest in some delegated authority for assigning speed, which is not allowable.
Okay, so she amends,
Not under
the
City of
chair
Toronto Act.
amends recommendation 4. I haven't seen it yet, but I gather that's what it was. Okay, and then for recommendations 1, 3, and 5, I gather there's going to be some other amendments brought back to deal with the traffic calming measures.
That there are, I believe, some motions that are being moved forward or either have been circulated. I don't know where they are in the ether. Maybe they're being circulated right now.
Right. And so your original recommendation was to, what specifically was the change to the process? It had to do with polling, or it had to do with delegated authority for?
So through the Speaker. So what was originally proposed was twofold, really. It was a delegation to the General Manager of Transportation to bring forward traffic calming measures and bring those bills directly to Community Council. So just bring forward proposals which could then be endorsed at Community Council. And then the second component was to give Community Council the ability to waive, if they so chose, to waive the petition and polling requirements related to traffic calming, and then
the formal polling, but not.
And then a subset of that was if Community Council then determined that they still wished polling to take place, to lower the threshold for the response rate from the 50% plus 1 to 25%, which would bring it into line with other polling requirements.
Those were your recommendations?
That's correct.
And I understand there are going to be motions, if not the same, but very similar. to your staff recommendations?
Those are the revised recommendations that after PWIC we came back to redefine for in the way that Ashley just described it.
Okay. Okay, so all of your changes are going to be reflective of those that and you support, as far as you understand it.
As far as we understand.
Yes.
I believe Councillor Robinson's motion has just been circulated.
Oh, it's blue? Right. Okay, I think I understand it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Next to speak for questioning of staff is Councillor Cole. Councillor Cole, you have questions of staff? Oops, I'll put your mic on. Sorry, there you go.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Through you, question to staff. I'm just curious if there's been consultation with the TTC on this report and how they have opined or commented on it.
Through you, I don't believe there has been. I know in part TTC can get concerned about addition of additional traffic signals, and so any proposals we would move forward, we would certainly make in consultation with them. We're also looking at ways that we can align bus stops and crossing areas so that we can ensure that we can not impact travel speed and reliability and still improve pedestrian safety.
So while I guess their input will not or has not been included on the broad strokes of setting the policy, that in a specific instance where there's a change, they would be consulted?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
how formal is that mechanism?
Through you, I believe that we sit down with them at the table and look through these proposals. They review plans, they provide feedback. We typically engage with them if we have concerns about their recommendation and try to come to some consensus.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Next on the list to ask questions of staff is Deputy Mayor Holliday. I'll just turn on your mic.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Through you to the staff, you know, this business about polling, you know, what a hassle. Why do we have this? Why is polling included in our traffic calming policy and our warrants? Sorry, our policy, I should be correct on that.
Through you, polling is included, I believe, in a number of processes in the city. The traffic calming proposals tend to be very important to some people and not exciting to others. And so polling, I believe, is a way that we can get a more fulsome review of those proposals and get more feedback from the broader community, because they do tend to impact, although they impact certainly the people that are directly on those roads, they impact the broader community as well.
Oh, so changes on one street could impact sort of a broader area. Got it?
Absolutely.
So would I be correct if I'm reading the Traffic Calming Policy 2010 that works like speed humps and reconfigurations actually fall as a Schedule B under the Environmental Assessment Act, 1990, which means anything under $1.5 million requires us to consult with people. However, the City of Toronto Act, 2006, changed the onus on that, and we ended up with a system of polling as one of the gates pursuant to those acts and pursuant to our duty to consult, to go out and consult with the people.
So,
would I be correct in that assertion that there's some reason that we've got polling in there? It's not a random occurrence.
That's correct.
It's in support of the law.
That's correct.
Is there any sense why it's 60%?
I don't. Okay. My understanding is 50% plus 1 is the threshold for this type of a poll.
So 50% is the response, and then it requires a 60% rate on that. Would it be fair to say that because we harmonized polling with the methodology used across Toronto, which means that it's not only the eligible household, but it's each registered voter in the household, because we've got the lists, that we count both of those? It could be 2 votes for a house. So there's a little bit of a higher test than just half. It's now 60%, because sometimes you get 2 votes per house.
Yes, and my understanding is that if they do not get a response back, it's counted as a negative poll.
Right. So under the proposal, we're looking at reducing the response rate from 50% to 25%. And then of that, it has to be a 60% of 25. So on a street with 100 houses, if we got back 15 votes that were supportive of this, that's enough to pass. So 15 votes out of 100 houses is our test, is our threshold.
With the proposal, I did want to just add that it would be 25% it would be
25%, and then you need 60% of that to be supportive. So,
Yeah, that's correct.
so 15 votes would trigger a positive response. And so if a street with 50 houses, it would be 8 votes, potentially 4 households, 3 households.
I wouldn't want you to think that the polling is the only opportunity for community engagement on these projects. So certainly
Understood.
in design development and then through community council deputations as
But
well.
as you can see through the questioning, I want to establish that there's some methodology to the reason that we have the pollings and that there are numbers for a reason. Okay, I just want to go back to the committee recommendations. Would I be correct in understanding that either through an administrative inquiry or the report itself, we are aware as a council that there are 2 reports coming that are due? One of them is going to be on community safety zones, that we're going to reveal, I don't know, 700 of them in the city. Have I got that number right?
Through you, 754, I believe.
And we're going to learn what a community safety zone is by definition, and you know, where it goes and why you use it and how does it work with a school safety zone. Is that correct? So that's one report that's coming in June, because that's what the report here says.
Yes, correct.
Excellent. And so 3 of the recommendations in the report pertain to community safety zones. So we don't actually understand everything we're getting into. We're going to learn more about it next month. So there was some rationale to the committee's deferral of these matters to that report. So it would come as a package.
Through you, that's correct. Community safety zones, it's lifting of a moratorium. So the concept of a community safety zone has existed in the city for some time. We haven't articulated new ones since 2009 because of lack of enforcement.
And as the chair said, we're going to lift the moratorium because that has to do with the automated enforcement. And the last is we know there's a report coming, because you said it earlier, on traffic warrants. So we're going to consider that as a package, and 3 of these particular recommendations pertain to traffic warrants, so it would be logical to actually hear these things together. And there's a reason to the way that the committee recommendations were put forward.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, just to the general manager, you had brought in a number of recommendations to the committee where you had sought delegated authority. And there became an issue, I understand, with the clerk that the whole number of bylaws would need to be changed in order to have that. Would I be right?
Through you, I believe there were lots of issues in terms of the procedural bylaw, but also the way that some of those elements were written that we worked through with legal. So there were plenty of reasons why those 2 recommendations, as written and presented to PWIC, required revision.
But in seeking delegated authority, what you're really seeking is for council to mandate you to move more swiftly, to be more proactive, to get in at the roads and say, this is an unsafe condition, we've discovered this, and bring it forward to council members to say, we're suggesting, we're recommending you make changes here based on our expertise as traffic planners.
Through you, Madam Speaker, that is our interest, yes.
So the delegate part was go faster. We want to go faster. We want you to tell us to go faster, if I put that the most simple way.
Through you, faster, but also in a package of improvements that we could bring to the community council for their deliberation.
I understand. And part of those things that have been listed, there's so many things that can happen. A bump out, traffic calming, a speed hump, generally, all of these things, I think generally I would be correct to say that the culture at this city has been to wait for a community to ask or wait for a councillor to ask for those kinds of things to happen. So engaged community members are going and saying, oh, we think this is good to have a bump out here, and then it gets studied and then it goes in. So there is no overall proactive thinking at this point. And you're trying to get to that.
Through you, yes, we are trying to get to a more comprehensive and proactive alternate option for transportation to bring forward to the council packages of improvements that would support Vision Zero and support communities' desires for safe streets.
And all of your great staff that are currently studying speed humps and going out and waiting for the polling and chasing reports and bringing those reports and writing them up to community council are spending considerable number of hours in that cumbersome process over 16 months. I think so. I've witnessed that. Would you agree with that observation?
I would absolutely agree with that observation.
Would you rather have them out looking how to be proactive to make our streets safer?
Through you, yes, I want to say that they do that as well. I believe that with transportation as a network, and I know Councillor Holliday has talked about this before, the impacts in one location tend to have an impact on the entire community. So the ability to look at areas as a network really gives us much more ability to solve broader problems for the community.
And you would rather have 16 months looking at that rather than 16 months at chasing a traffic calming speed hump pole and writing numerous reports, at least 2 reports, formal reports that you sign to Community Council?
I think we would like to be as effective as we can be, and we know that the community and the councillors would like to see these things happen more quickly. So to the extent that we can do that.
All of your meetings with communities around Vision Zero, have you got the feeling that they think we don't go fast enough and are thoughtful enough about getting things moving?
I do believe that, yes.
And
I believe that certainly the speed is an issue, and certainly they are very thoughtful, and we hope that we are thoughtful as well when we come together to have those discussions.
Thank you.
Councillor Robinson to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This
Okay,
is my mic on?
Yes.
It is? Okay. Thank you very much. As you can see, this is a very complex issue, and that's why even at Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, and we were, as I said, we were struggling with quorum issues.
Do you have a motion?
I do, and it has been pre-circulated.
Okay.
So thank you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing that. This is a very complicated issue, and it hits really at the heart of local issues in our neighborhoods and our communities, and that's why we have to tread very carefully and thoughtfully as we go through this process. So, as I said, it was a very challenging meeting, and I'm going to walk you through my motions and hopefully shed a bit of light on this matter. So the first is lifting the moratorium, and we want to make sure that happens because that enables our automated speed enforcement pilot that, again, many of us are very passionate about and have been fighting for a long time, and it's been, in the works with the province of Ontario, and sometimes there's been a bit of heel dragging, but finally we're at a place where we can pilot this. So lifting the moratorium is the first item on my list of motions. The second one is very exciting, and I referred to this during my questions to the General Manager, is at the next PWIC meeting we are going to actually have a full report, comprehensive report, on areas to be designated as community safety zones. So a lot of people don't really even fully understand what those are. So it's basically the school zone and the neighboring streets around the school zones to make sure kids can get to school safely. And so at this meeting, forthcoming will be defining what they are and where they will be mapped and designating pilot locations. So again, in the report before you, there wasn't a lot of detail around that. Number 3 is asking for some things that are near and dear to many of our hearts, signing and lining. We can't get enough of signing and lining in our neighborhoods, and a lot of our neighborhoods need refreshing. So we're going to be adding staff, 4 temporary staff, to work on not just the community safety zones, but Vision Zero overall. And again, staff said they wish they had to put Vision Zero road safety plan in the original report for this item, because it's not just one community safety zone, it's also for senior safety zones and school safety zones, the whole gamut. And so that report, that money would be a temporary amount, and then eventually it would there'd be a budget request in the upcoming budget. Number 4 is really basically to deal with have I got it right? The traffic wardens? No, I don't have it right. What's number 4? Here it is. Okay. Oh, did I skip 3? I skipped 3. My apologies. So number 3 would be to really discard of the initial petition. So I think there was some confusion on the floor. And the confusion was related to how many petitions are there. And so how it works is the community has to conduct a petition. Then it goes to North York Community Council, and if it's approved there for speed humps or speed bumps, whatever you want to call them, Then it goes to an official poll conducted by the clerk's office. Am I correct? I see heads shaking, so I'm correct. So my understanding of this item is that that would discard with that first step that is very cumbersome and adds time to the whole thing. But the other thing I want to add, in speaking to some junior staff who are on the ground, hit the ground running, they were sharing with me that they think what part of the holdup is not all of this, but is instead the actual process of getting them installed. And they were saying that if it was maybe an open contract versus a closed contract where they can really only be added during the fall period, that maybe we'd be able to get them installed where they are approved by North York Community Council much faster. So it's very, very complicated. And so therefore, I just wanted to kind of lay that out for you. But I'm happy to take any questions if you're confused by any of this. And if you are, rightfully so, because it is confusing. But what we are doing is really trying to fast track and streamline the process. There is this report coming in June. Coupled with that, there's also a warrants report that's forthcoming, that a lot of this will be addressed within that warrants report as well. It's confusing. I think that my time is up.
Thank you, Councillor
But I'm happy.
Robinson. Yeah, thank you. Question, you do have questions. Councillor DiCiano.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So my question to Councillor Robinson is, Public Works and Infrastructure Committee brought this forward. So before us is a series of recommendations. Is this motion here replacing all that or some of that?
So that's a great question. So at Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, we actually were interested in the whole context. And so we had actually referred some of them back to be part of the warrant report that's forthcoming, so that you're seeing all traffic calming measures addressed in one comprehensive report. So to answer your question, I would say majority of it is being dealt with. Now, something there was not a lot of appetite for, that was my impression, is the delegated authority to the general manager. You've heard that there's some issues with the bylaw today. Bylaws would have to be changed. The clerk's department had an issue, and so that's why it was a bit bumpy at PWEC, dealing with this matter.
So even if the report that's before us, not your motion, but the report that's before us is adopted, it does not include providing this delegated authority. The report just says you've sent that back for review?
No. What we're suggesting is that it basically remains with Community Council. We feel like that's the right forum for it, and that's why we're elected in this room, is to facilitate that. So I certainly don't support that we delegate the authority to the general manager, and certainly we had some visitors at Public Works from various wards, and people felt the same way.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Robinson. There's nothing in here about getting rid of the pole, is there?
Yes, there is.
Whereabouts?
It is number 3 at the very bottom. You see that we amend it as to permit the general manager to report directly to Community Council. So you'll note that previous to this, there'd be a community poll that would be
about the polling.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
Well, it doesn't say anything about the.
It's. You're mixing up petition. Okay, so you're getting technical on me. So petition. Pardon? The poll is still part of the puzzle. Yes.
So you're still wanting the poll 50% plus 1, correct? Is this what you're submitting for us?
Yes, I'm still a proponent of the polling. Councillor Davis is owing me at the petition. So the petition is what is the first stage.
Madam Chair, will you put my time on hold until the two ladies sort of figure out what they're doing?
Oh, excuse me. I was trying to assist.
Madam Chair, please put my time on hold, please.
I think the councillor got a bit confused
Madam Chair, please put my time on hold.
Councillor Davis, you don't have to insist when somebody's talking to another councillor. Please, please.
May I, on a point of personal privilege?
Councillor Davis, point of personal privilege.
I did not attempt to do anything other than assist the councillor because I know she was trying to explain the process. And there was not any ill intent, and if she believes that happened, then I apologize, but I did not attempt to do that in any way. There is a difference between the petition and a poll, and that's what she was trying to explain.
That's right, and they both start with P.
Okay, Councillor Karygiannis, if you can
There's a lot of words to start with P. However, are you proposing that we do away with a polling, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
What I'm doing, if I can answer your question,
You've did, and I thank you. My other
is
question.
that I'm not, that we're doing away with the original step or phase, whatever you want to call it, and that's the petition.
Fine, thank you. I don't see anything in here about money in order for us to be able to, I see money for operating budget to hire staff, but I don't see any money in here about mitigating vices.
Sorry, I'm not, sorry? What did you say?
All right, maybe I'm not coming across clear, so I'm going to try one more time.
Okay.
I see money in here for hiring staff.
Mm-hmm.
I see no money in here in your proposal about getting equipment in place, having material to address all the mitigating things that we need to do, be it speed humps, be it posts that you want to put in the middle of the roads. Yep. I don't see anything in
that's
there.
already been addressed in the capital budget. There's $90 million was already there, and we added
$99?
$9 million. $90 million. Okay. And then in this budget, the budget chair added was good enough to add another $6 million. So that's already. This is because there's going to be a lot of line markings required to do this work, and we actually need them immediately. We don't need them in a few months. We need them immediately to get out and do this work. So that's why it's here, and this is a staff recommendation.
Thank you. You kept referring to North York Community Council. I think just because you're in North York, that was your home base.
I'm so tried and true
all right,
North
but
York.
It's any community
I meant
council.
all community councils.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Councillor Holliday, clarification of the motion.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Councillor Karygiannis' questions have me thoroughly confused, and I just want to see if I can get some clarity around this. Through you to Councillor Robinson, would I be correct that the committee recommendations referred 1, 3, and 5 back to the general manager to come together with the report on traffic calming measures, which is different than what you've got in front of us? So 1 was the traffic calming policy, 2 had to do with some changes to delegation, as well as number 5. So the committee sent those back to come together with another report, but the motion in front of you, number 3, is doing something helpful. It's finding a way to speed up the process in a way that's not necessarily controversial or is related in any way to the deferred items back to the traffic calming policy.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So we sent some of it back to be part and parcel of this bigger report warrants, but exactly, now we've zeroed in on what's really important and an ability to streamline and fast track the process, and that's exactly what number 3 does, and I think it's a big step forward.
So number 3 says that it basically knocks off the requirement for a petition in certain circumstances when the general manager feels it's necessary to report directly to community council with the traffic measure.
That's correct.
And would I be right when I said traffic calming policy says that the whole purpose of the petition is just to gauge support so that the staff aren't running around writing reports where there's no interest? It's a rather low bar, and I think we're pretty confident that there's interest in putting traffic calming and other measures directly in school areas.
Correct. That's absolutely
Excellent.
correct. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving the bar forward by supporting number 3. And then, as you said, number 1 is rather utilitarian because we learned from staff that we needed to lift the moratorium on the community safety zones in order to allow for the automated speed enforcement project to move forward, something we didn't really know at committee.
No, that was an oversight, and it was given the culture of that or the makeup of that meeting.
And finally, number 6 was originally referred to go along with the community safety zone report as a package. but staff told us that they'd like to get a head start on hiring because these are people that are going to have to be painting the lines and installing the signs. So there isn't really much harm in kind of hiring them up a month early before that report comes.
That's right. And what was missing from, and I've added to in this motion, in this amendment, I've added the Vision Zero road safety plan. We need it for that as well. So it's a win-win.
So
hit the ground running.
Final question is, the way that it came out of committee was actually a really good report. We're getting a bunch of things out of it, and we're having packages put together with respect to the community safety zones and the traffic warrants and future reports that we can consider them cohesively, yet your motion actually moves the bar forward in a couple of instances where we felt there was some concern from council.
Thank you. That's your last question.
Yes, so that's absolutely correct, and we'll look forward to June 2018 and a month's time to have the school safety zone implementation plan before us.
Thank you. Councillor Coe, clarification of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I apologize for my back being to you. Just in terms of help, maybe you can help me out here. Between the staff recommendations, committee recommendations, and the motions in front of us now, where does the issue of delegated authority to the general manager land with your motion, or does it address that at all?
Well, that was part of the confusion with the report. So what I had been told by the acting deputy city manager, that both legal and clerks had some issues with the report, the way it was written, and that delegation or that proposal. And so the committee didn't really endorse that concept, and we heard from other councillors they really didn't, there was no appetite for delegating the authority to the general manager. Many people felt that that's the local councillor's role and the role of community councils, which I keep calling North York. My apologies to community councils, and people would like to see that role retained.
So as it stands with what's in front of us today, including your amendments, that system is retained?
Yeah, the current system. The only thing that we've kind of done to try to, not only thing, but one of the things we've done to try to fast track it is cutting out the original step, which is the petition.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. And I have two motions here, which have been advance circulated. Once they're up there, I can speak to them.
If we can put her motions.
So the first one is to amend the council procedures to delegate to community councils the authority to waive petition and polling requirements for traffic calming measures in community safety zones and speed zones. And the second is to amend the traffic calming policy as it pertains to community safety zones and school speed zones by reducing the required polling response rate from 50% plus 1 to 25% plus 1. So I'll just speak briefly about these two motions. One of them, I can tell that Councillor Holyday feels strongly about polling and wants to continue to poll. And these motions would not impede him from doing that. But I've already, in my street, or my ward, know exactly how many people are interested in speed humps on that street. So to spend the next 16 months hearing about a poll that often weren't there, they didn't get to vote, and then to have two reports to community council, I think is wasting a lot of time of our staff that I would like them to be out on site visits looking at other things. So it gives me the opportunity to waive that, and it also gives councillors like Councillor Holyday or anyone else the ability to maintain that. So it's the perfect balance. I also just want to say that I did send around originally the 6 original recommendations in an advance notice, and was pointed out that the delegated authority that was in these motions was an issue for the clerks and for legal, because we couldn't do the delegated authority without making a number of other changes, bylaw changes. So that was, I took those back, and Councillor Robinson kindly stepped up to move the actual original number 1 and number 6, which lifted a moratorium that had been put in place in, I think, 19 '99 or some other time, many, many decades ago. And also number 6, which would make sure that our general manager and her staff can get out early and look at putting the signage, the striping, whatever else they need to do in those 100 school zones that have been identified. The other thing that we did, and that Councillor Robinson did, was simplify the language that was at PWIC. And she's identified that from taking out delegated to just give the authority. And I think when I asked my questions, it was very clear. I really want our staff to feel emboldened to be looking at solutions out there proactively to fix things, to clear things up, to make them safer, no matter where it is across the city. And I don't think that happens as much as we would like. I don't think that that has been the culture in transportation. And I think that our general manager and our staff are trying to change that culture through Vision Zero, which we have established and we've all supported and we all want to see move faster. And by the way, all Torontonians want to see Vision Zero move faster in their communities. They might not like Vision Zero when they're driving down Carlaw and they want to go 50 kilometers an hour, but they like Vision Zero when it's in their community near their school. So we also have to engage people about the importance of our traffic calming, our Vision Zero mode for safe driving, for safe cycling, and for safe walking in our city. And it actually has to do with all three. It's not just one, it's all three. That's our challenge. This is a very small step towards this challenge. And I'm very glad we're not referring all of these to come back maybe in July. When we're out of business, quite frankly, we're gone in July, or when they would come back. But let's get on with this now. Clerks have been very helpful in refining the language. Councillor Robinson has agreed to many of these things. Didn't agree with the polling. That's why I'm advancing that in this way today. And I hope that, councillors, you will support all of the motions in front of us from Councillor Robinson and myself.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Thank you. We do have a question for you, Councillor Karygiannis. Clarification of the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor. When you say on motion B, the City Council amend from 50 plus 1 to 25 plus 1, do you mean in there of the responders? So what I'm trying to say, if 500 go out and only 100 people respond, to the language that you're looking for, is that out of the 100 people that respond, the 25 are the ones that say yes, and we do this?
25% response rate. But,
okay,
Councillor,
so
I'd just like to draw your attention to the first motion, which is, if I can, please.
Yes.
Which is that's if you wish to have a poll, that the requirements aren't as onerous as 50% response rate. But on motion number A, if you are sure, and the general manager has recommended to install a speed hump or a chicane, or that you can waive those requirements at your community council.
But on B, you're saying from 50% of the responses to 25%. You're lowering down responses. So
yes.
25% of the people have to respond.
Whatever's required now, it's moving from half to 1/4.
Thank you.
And then
appreciate it.
We can take it from there. And I will note for you that no matter how many people respond, there's never been a speed hump, maybe once, turned down in all of Toronto and East York Community Council, even when the response rate has not been met, Councillor. We have never turned them down.
Well, there's other councils. Thank you.
Okay, members of council, we would like to really get this agenda complete early, because there are members of council that have to leave. So if you don't have to speak and you know what your position is on this item, I would just suggest that we vote on the motions. Councillor Davis, do you have a question to Councillor Robinson that hasn't been answered?
To Fletcher, I do.
Councillor Davis to Councillor Fletcher. Sorry.
Would you consider taking off +1 on the 25%? I'll tell you why. It would make it consistent with all of the other polling. So I don't know whether you realize front yard Parking, commercial boulevard parking, permit parking, cafe, boulevard cafes, they are all 25% and 50% plus one for what's the level of support. So it would be consistent with all of the other polling if you took plus one.
The clerks have prepared this for me. Mr. Alvidge has been so helpful, and I will just have this conversation, and quite possibly I'll agree to that.
I just did, and he produced for me what the polling for all of the other polling is. It's 50% plus one in terms of response rate and 25% support.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, Councillor Matlow to speak. Councillor Davis, is there a question that hasn't been answered?
Yes, I had it backwards, and thank you, Councillor Perks. It's 25% response rate and 50% plus one.
That's correct.
Support in favor.
That's correct.
So you just need to take off the plus one.
I'm going to, and the clerk says that's fine, so I'm happy to do that, Councillor Davis, and have that revised.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow.
Madam Speaker, I have two motions. One is put it on either order, and I'll explain it. So one is to essentially reiterate a motion that I moved that was approved at Council before, that City Council request the Police Services Board to request the Chief of Police. I know it's so awkwardly worded, but that's formally how you have to do it here because we don't operate the police. To report to the Police Services Board on allocating adequate enforcement of the Highway Traffic Act to neighbourhoods across Toronto and City Council. This is the addition that they submit a report to the City and the Board's response, so we actually get a response and we can consider the response. The reason I do this is that 53 Division in my area is one example, and I believe it's similar in divisions across the city. From Lawrence Avenue down to Bloor Street, from Thorncliffe Park all the way over to Spadina, they only have 2 officers enforcing the Highway Traffic Act. One off and one on at shifts, which is absurd. And any on-the-street officer I've spoken with agrees. And I'm not getting into the debate about if they have enough money or they don't have enough money or this or that, or just factually, it has to be figured out. There isn't enough reasonable allocation of officers on the street to be able to even suggest to the driver who is misbehaving that there is a possibility of enforcement and consequence. The other one is that, if you could put it up, that there be an accelerated process that includes costs to design and reconfigure streets to implement Vision Zero, and also a review of our streets with advice on changing the speed regulations. Now, the reason I do this is because I think it's time that we admit that we are failing. Our Vision Zero strategy is failing. There is no evidence that we have made a difference with respect to the number of people in our city who are tragically either being seriously injured or killed on our streets. And I say that without any suggestion that it's not without the best efforts of those on our staff and those in political leadership who are making efforts to make a difference. But I think we all can honestly admit it's not working yet, and we need to do more. As you know, I've been a big advocate, based on experts' advice and based on our medical officer of health's advice, that we need to lower the speed limits in our neighborhood streets to ensure that that we set the rules. In other words, just like the federal government says, you're not allowed to break into a bank, then it's the police's job to then go and enforce those rules and go catch the bank robbers. Well, we need to set our standards. What should those regs be? But then we need adequate police enforcement to then go and do something about it when people are, whether it be texting and driving or racing through stop signs or speeding on our streets. But we also know, based on expert advice, that many of our streets are configured and designed to accommodate 50 kilometers or more. And we need to look at those streets and see what can we do to thoughtfully reconfigure them in a way that's cost-effective and efficient to ensure that they are redesigned in a way that promotes our regulations. In other words, what is our expectations of 30 kilometers where necessary. or 40 or whatever the street might be. So bottom line is, I don't think we are doing enough, fast enough to respond to what I believe is the top priority. There are a lot of priorities in the city. I can speak as our seniors advocate. The vast preponderance of people who are either seriously injured or killed on our streets are seniors. That isn't spoken about enough, but it should be more, because that's a significant problem. And we need to deal with people, we need to help people who have mobility challenges and who are vulnerable on our streets. But as a father of a 5-year-old, I can tell you that this is a kid who's going to be walking to school one of these days sooner than I like, on her own. I think all of us need to know that we've done everything possible within this time period that we're elected to make our streets as safe as we possibly can make them. And we invest in a lot of other things. We should be investing in reconfiguring our streets. We should have the courage to lower speed limits where necessary. And the governance structure that we have doesn't allow us to force this issue, but I would hope that the police would agree. Then we need a number of officers enforcing the Highway Traffic Act in every neighborhood in our city to ensure that then when we set the requirements, that they're enforced and that there's some even possibility of consequences on drivers who are not behaving as individuals the way that we would expect that they should. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Fletcher?
Yes, I just wanted to formally say I've signed off on the 50% plus 1 to 25%. And also, I understand that the question might be called shortly, and I'd like to make one more revision in motion A, and that would be to, after traffic calming measures, as Councillor Doucette has asked me to take off in community safety zones and school speed zones, so it could be on any street in your ward, not just those that are already designated.
Thank you. Councillor Karygiannis.
Madam Chair, Councillor Fletcher was reading my mind. Call the question. I had a death in my area of a child, and we can sit here and exasperate this. We're all on the same page.
Okay.
Let's vote on it.
The question's been called. Come on, we can get this agenda done in the next half hour. Recorded vote.
Councillor Layton, please. Councillor Davis, when you're seated. Councillor Perks, please.
The motion to call the question carries. The vote is 26 to 5.
Okay, great. Okay, let's.
Finally, they're doing what I tell them.
Okay, let's put the motions up. I think everybody has said what they want to say, right? Yeah. Yes, Councillor Robinson?
I just want to make sure, because Councillor Fletcher kind of edited hers on the fly. Can we make sure Council sees those motions?
Yes.
And can I just clarify, did she get rid of the word petition in her?
No.
To wait, so the petition is the initial piece and the polling is the clerk's piece?
Well, you'll see it when we put it on the screen.
Okay, I'd just like to see it again. 'Cause
Okay.
that was done.
Okay, which motion first? Councillor Robinson's motion is first. We'll put it on the screen. Did we want a recorded vote? Yes.
Councillor Kelly, please, when you're seated.
The amendment carries unanimously, 34 in favor.
Okay, our next motion. By Councillor Fletcher, revised, recorded vote. If you don't agree with it, just vote no.
Councillor DiCiano, please.
Councillor Thompson, please. Thank you. Councillor... Oh.
Councillor Ainsley, please.
Quiet, please. Councillor Holiday, Councillor DiCiano, please control yourself. We're waiting for the results.
The motion does not carry. To amend the procedures bylaw requires a 2/3 vote. The vote is 22 to 12. It does not carry.
All right, next motion. Okay, if we can put it on the screen. Recorded vote.
Councillor DiCiano, please.
Councillor Sao, please.
The motion carries 30 to 6.
Okay, our next motion. 3A by Councillor Matlow.
Councillor McMahon, please, and
Councillor Fletcher, please. Councillor Fletcher, please.
Motion 3A carries 33-2.
Okay, motion 3B. Do we need a recorded vote on this too? Recorded vote.
Councillor Davis, please.
The motion carries 35-1.
Item as amended, all in favor? Carried. Okay, our next item is page 2, PW 29.7. Councillor Holliday, you held the item down. Councillor Holliday.
No, thank you, Speaker. I'm sorry. There's so much noise I couldn't hear the item.
Your item that you held down on page 2, PW 29.7.
Parking pad regulations. Thank you. I have no questions.
Pardon?
I have no questions.
Okay, does anybody? Councillor Davis, one question.
So there's a great deal of confusion about, over the many years, about the role of the approvals process and committee of adjustment versus community councils. But one of the things that we've been told is that if committee of adjustment approves a parking pad that is in its entirety on private property, we must give them a curb cut. Why is that? And maybe it's a legal question.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's the advice we're getting from legal. So if there's a legal parking space created on private property, then we would give access to that legal parking space. The only caveat to that is if the driveway is located somewhere that's like an unsafe location, that we deem it to be an unsafe space for a curb cut, it's for sightline reasons. People can't see getting in and out of the driveway. We could deny it and for that reason, but that's the only reason we could really deny it.
Maybe I can ask the city solicitor. I hate to do this. We've struggled over the years to understand what authority Committee of Adjustment has for granting front yard parking pads and the role of the city over granting access through the right-of-way and permitting of the right-of-way. But we have been told that if Committee of Adjustment approves a parking pad, even if it's in the front of the front wall of the house, which is contrary to the zoning bylaw, that we are obligated to provide permission and grant a curb cut in the public right-of-way to allow access to that parking pad. And so why is that the case?
Through you, Madam Speaker, it's my understanding that if the parking pad is entirely on private property,
yes,
then the zoning bylaw is exclusively what governs, and if it is to a degree on public property, then Chapter 918 also applies. But I think that transportation could probably give you a more detailed answer about.
No, transportation has said that they have had legal advice that the city must give access, unless there's a safety consideration, to that parking pad which is on private property.
My understanding is that if the parking pad is entirely on private property, then the Committee of Adjustment approval is the only approval required. The zoning...
No.
I understand that the curb cut would have to follow that.
So what I have heard from transportation over several years is that legal's interpretation is that we cannot withhold permission for a curb cut and to access the private property over the right-of-way for that parking pad. And I'm wondering where that legal opinion came from.
That is my understanding. However, I do not have a legal opinion at this point. If you would like, I could request it. I will see if I can get more information for you from my staff.
So don't answer.
Okay. That's been 15 years we've been told this, and we've been struggling to deal with private on private property parking pads that are not parking pads that we want to approve. So if you could get some answer to that, I would appreciate that. I don't know whether we can hold it down. How many items left? Is this the last item?
But we
okay. Could we defer it? For 1 month?
Many do. Councillor de Beermaker, questions?
Thank you. Through Madam Speaker, to the appropriate staff. I don't know if that's transportation or if it's legal staff. I just want to ask you to clarify, if I have a parking space or driveway on my property that's, let's call it 2.5 meters wide, I come in for a parking pad application or through Committee of Adjustment to widen my driveway to get that, I'll call it second spot on my front lawn. That increases my driveway, if you will, from 3 meters, say, to 6 meters. Do we have to provide the full 6 meters, or can we say your driveway is 3 meters and that gives you enough space to get onto both spots?
Through you, Madam Speaker. My understanding is that in that situation, it would have to be reviewed by through the zoning bylaw. If it met the zoning bylaw requirements for the front yard, then we could issue a curb cut to match that parking space.
We could, but do we have to?
It's the same question as legal struggling with, I think.
Sorry, I couldn't.
I think it's the same question that we're struggling with, related to do we have to issue a curb cut if there's a legal parking space on the property.
Right. So if the intent of council is to try to maximize the amount of permeable surface, as we say, or green space, you're saying that if on the one hand we do something good for some residents, which is to allow them to have a parking pad when necessary, the unintended consequence of our action is to pave over more surface area all across this city, or well, in the downtown parts of the city, which is something that all of our policies say we shouldn't do.
Through you, Madam Chair, perhaps I could help address this question, help both councillors and council out here. One thing to keep in mind is the process itself. If an application comes in to the Committee of Adjustment for a minor variance, say to widen a driveway or reduce the landscaping requirements, the process we have in place has circulation of that proposal to departments like Transportation Services. Their comments are fed back to the C of A before the C of A deals with the matter, so they're informed in their decision making. It's not usual that a variance will go through and force the situation on Transportation Services.
Through you, Madam Speaker, then again, if somebody, as using the example you cited, came in for a minor variance to allow them to widen their driveway, almost the width of their lot, you know, maybe let's call it 9 meters wide, 10 meters wide, you believe that our staff would then put a submission to the Committee of Adjustment saying if they're widening the driveway to say 15 meters wide, only allow them a 3 meter wide entrance. In general, that's what you think happens, or that's what you believe should happen.
Through you, Madam Speaker, yes, the commenting departments will provide advice to the C of A panel, as do community planning staff. And if the recommendation is that the driveway be narrowed, perhaps to match to the existing narrow curb cut, that will be the advice to the Committee of Adjustment. However, the Committee of Adjustment is able to make an independent decision, not take that advice if they choose not to, but that's not often.
And would I be correct in saying you have not actually received that direction from council to maximize the green space, if you will, or to restrict the original opening to the original driveway? That's a matter, I'll say, of practice. But do you have direction from this council to not allow people to have a 15-meter wide driveway or parking space that allows them to pave over the boulevard?
Through you, Madam Chair. The citywide zoning bylaw adopted in 2013, amended by and approved by the OMB very recently, plus some technical amendments done, sort of controls the situation by having a sliding scale of required landscaped open space in front of houses. It's based on the width or lot frontage you have. The wider the lot frontage, the more landscaped open space you're required. The committee takes that into consideration when they're dealing with applications before them. There is a relationship to the parking pad in that scenario.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Shiner.
So, Michael, the issue of a pad in relationship to the Committee of Adjustment and forestry's comments always seem to cause some conflicts. So when we're dealing with pads or driveways and forestry raises a concern about a tree being in the way, is the committee generally deferring that to resolve the issue and look at options in advance, or is it just making a decision and leaving the problem to one that members of council often face of having a resident who's got an approval from the committee, but there's a tree in the middle of the driveway. And forestry said it shouldn't be removed, and then forestry after the approval says you have no choice to remove it.
Through you, Madam Chair, the issue of street trees or trees on the private property that end up in one form or another coming before the committee has generated a lot of interest by Planning and Growth Management and Council in general. There has been recent reports that have come through the committee on this issue. I can tell you the process that I outlined related to the curb cut and that we circulate to Transportation Services, that same process occurs with urban forestry. Before a matter is scheduled at the committee for the panel to hear the matter, urban forestry comments on any tree issues. Generally speaking, through education and other means, I have found, or I've observed certainly even in the last year, a greater sensitivity or regard by the panel members of the C of A to address appropriately the issues of trees that come up. And if it came up with a parking pad issue, we would look to flip the parking access to the other side to protect the tree. So that's something that I think is being handled better more recently.
And what can we see the committee do to handle it even better than that? Because it is that conflict between redeveloping, but the demands that some people have may affect, in some cases, and I'm facing one today, moving a side yard by 2 feet caused a driveway to move 6 feet, and then this tree now is in the middle of the second opening for the second door for the driveway, and faced with the choice of get one of my colleagues with a chainsaw maybe to cut it down,
Knock it off.
or I didn't name anyone, or not knock it down, and then the person has a real problem with their home, which I'm extremely sympathetic to.
Through you, Madam Chair, this scenario happens quite often. Plans come in, they're in conflict with an existing tree. What we've seen lately and what we've actually pushed for is, where appropriate, we're seeking the committee to defer the matter to a future hearing date so that we can get in revised plans. So community planning are commenting, urban forestry is commenting, so we can get revised plans in that they may change where that door is located or where the access to the building is, so that we can better protect the trees. Both the staff and the panel members have received training in the last year to improve their response to this type of issue.
Thank you.
You know, I don't consider it funny. It started with parks.
Councillor Fragadakis, you have a question?
Yes, I'll be brief, and it's just a follow-up on Councillor Shiner's line of questioning to staff. Sorry. My question is, you mentioned that there has been some more training that panel members at the Committee of Adjustment have received as it relates to urban forestry matters, and so that we can avoid these conflicts where a house has been approved and then they go to pull a building permit and then they can't because there's a city tree where the driveway is, and so then we have this endless twilight zone state that people are in where they have approvals but they can't actually build. So I'm just wondering, with respect to transportation staff, and what kind of training transportation staff and forestry staff have received in the area of commenting as it relates to these applications, the notices of hearing that go out for the Committee of Adjustment.
Through you, Madam Chair. It's kind of a dual question there. I'll try and answer it. One.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, I can't.
Can you please try to keep it down? I know everybody wants to go home, but please.
In terms of training for both the members on issues like urban forestry and transportation services, the last full day hearing we had for the panel members, we had in fact had experts from both departments in to talk about those issues with the panel members. We're ramping up for another full day hearing with the members, and our intention is to invite transportation services plus Parks, Forestry and Rec staff again to deal with issues that have arisen in the last year. In terms of the staff side of that training equation, I think all the departments have worked closely together over the last couple of years to improve the timeliness and effectiveness of responses to help the panel members make better decisions. It's a clear message we got from committee and council that the panel members be trained to make better decisions, and we've been doing that.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. I can't hear.
Okay, if I can please have members of council, please try to keep it down. Councillor McMahon. Councillor Fletcher. Councillor DiCiano. Councillor Holliday, you held the item down. You don't want to speak, right? Okay, Councillor Perks to speak.
Speaker, thank you. As you may have gathered from Councillor Davis's questions, this issue is so fraught with difficulty, particularly for those of us who represent neighborhoods where houses are close together and people often have neither a driveway nor a garage nor the room for a parking pad, and their neighbors want to get one. And we try to control it through the bylaw to make sure that it's done well. And now there are, believe it or not, consultants out there who are working with people who cannot get a parking pad under our bylaw and tell them you can get around that if you go to the Committee of Adjustment, frustrating the purpose of our parking pad regulation, which is necessary in some of the neighborhoods where houses are very close together. There are streets in the former city of Toronto where literally there is no green space left because it is just a row of parking pads all down the block. And it's a very serious problem. So what the staff have brought us addresses some issues, and I do commend to you that you vote for it. But we do have to get a handle on both the parking pad bylaw and the tree bylaw being circumvented by applications to the Committee of Adjustment. We're going to run into this with laneway housing. when that comes. We will start to lose trees that we didn't need to lose because people will go in for a minor variance, despite what we write in the zoning bylaw for laneway housing. Frankly, at this point, the only recourse available to us as a council is, yes, to have city staff write reports that go to the Committee of Adjustment and encourage them to notice that there is council policy saying, please don't do this. But when the committee ignores that advice, as they do at times, we're going to have to start directing the city solicitor to go to the local appeal tribunal to overturn the decision of the Committee of Adjustment in order to protect the public policy goals we have of reducing stormwater, of increasing our tree canopy, and making our streets livable. It's incredibly frustrating, and frankly, next term we are going to have to turn our minds to finding a better solution to this so we don't have people frustrating good public policy that we are trying to build as a council. So with that, I'll sit down and say, I'm not thrilled with what we have in front of us, but given the legal possibilities we have today, it's the best we could do.
Great, thank you, Councillor Perks. Councillor Davis is next to speak to the item.
Thank you, Speaker. I will be supporting the recommendation, and I've had a chance to get my questions answered by both Transportation C of A staff. I do struggle with this as well because we have a zoning bylaw that says, please don't park in front of the front wall of the house. We have a zoning bylaw that says we want it landscaped, and we want 75% of the front yard landscaped and 50% of that to be green space. Then the problem has been, though, we have Chapter 918, which was what governed the right-of-way portions of the front of the front yards, and it also spoke to the green landscaping requirements. So what this bylaw does, what these bylaw changes do, as I understand it, is to clarify how much of a front yard can be walkways, parking, driveways, and parking pads, and how much, what percentage has to be soft landscaping. I hope I have that right. And what the outcome of this actually is that we are protecting a greater proportion of the front yard for soft green landscaping, which is what we want to do to achieve the wet weather flow objectives we have, to at source increase the amount of permeability in private yards and in the public right-of-way to reduce stormwater that goes into our already under capacity stormwater system. So overall, these are technical in nature. However, what I have found, as I know that Councillor Perks referred to, that the Committee of Adjustment has been approving these, many of which are not meeting the landscaping requirements. And what I have found as well is that our planning staff are not writing to comment on it. So I'm hopeful, though, that in raising this issue through this report, that we will have more information and direction provided to community planners around commenting on the zoning. They are supposed to be assessing whether it meets the 4 tests and whether together all of those variances being requested are minor in nature and reflect or reinforce the zoning bylaw and official plan. But I don't think they have been paying enough attention to those green space and landscaping requirements of the zoning bylaw. What has also happened is that the Committee of Adjustment has not been paying the level of attention it should as well to what our city objectives are. So I'm hoping with greater guidance given to the Committee of Adjustment and to our planners that we will see better decisions that are protecting and achieving our objectives around maintaining adequate green space on private and public property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Next Next on our speakers list is Councillor DiCiano. Calling Councillor DiCiano once. You're on the speakers list. Not anymore? Okay. Any other speakers on PW 29.7? Going once, twice, and 3 times. Great. Staff report is before us, I think, Madam Clerk. Yep. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Okay, good.
Next item of business, I believe, is on the pink sheets, page 2, under new business. CC 41.1, vacancy in the office of councillor, Ward 41, Scarborough Rouge River. Review and contingency plan for any future variances, vacancies, Ward 41. It was held by Deputy Mayor Stephen Holliday.
Holiday? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have no questions on this, but I do have a motion.
Okay, where is the motion? Does the staff have a motion on this?
Yes, I am. And to be correct, I wish to revise my motion that I had placed earlier. I'm advised that I must do that. So I would like to ensure that the staff recommendations are moved in the report, and I would also like to add an additional motion, and forgive me, that's not the correct one. I'd like to revise that motion.
We're on the item.
We're on the item.
I thought we were on the appointment of the new.
We already voted on it.
Yeah, but I thought we were on.
We voted on it, sorry. Okay, Councillor Holliday, your motion?
Yes, I am. So my motion is to appoint Councillor McMahon to the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. Because we have such an issue with quorum, we need somebody at the next meeting. And to go through an appointment process and then appoint that councillor would cause delay and cause risk. We hope that this is palatable to all members of council.
She's the chair of park. I have a question. I don't understand. Okay, but if you have a question, Councillor Algemari, just put your name up and ask him a question. Councillor Holliday, so you're ready for questions?
I am.
Okay, questions to Councillor Holliday. Councillor Algemari, you put it in the wrong place. Councillor, hold on. First, Councillor Davis. Councillor Davis, what is your question?
Councillor Holliday, did you consider all of the other people who requested beyond that to fill that vacancy?
I haven't seen that list, no.
So you just arbitrarily selected someone from, even though there was an appointments process that was supposed to proceed, where multiple people put their names forward to be part of it.
If you heard what I said, traditionally the appointed councillor for Councillor Lee would be the person to fill his spot on the committee. If we wait for that process to go through, we jeopardize the committee because quorum is at risk at every meeting we seem to go to. So this is to ensure somebody is able to come to the next meeting.
For 1 month, maybe.
For one cycle.
Yeah. And so who did you consider? Did you consider other people who've asked to be on the committee before?
Councillor Hart, and the next consideration is Councillor McMahon, knowing that there isn't a lot of time to have a striking committee meeting.
Okay. Councillor McMahon is already a chair of a committee. Is that, you're aware of that?
Yes, I am.
And
She loves bicycles.
yeah, frankly, I'm trying to understand how you chose to be on the committee.
Okay, Councillor Davis, Councillor Holliday's answered the question. If you don't agree, then speak on it. Okay, that's not clarification of the motion.
Vote your conscience on it is all.
Councillor Algemari, do you have clarification of the motion?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Perks, do you have clarification of the motion? Okay.
Which members of council did you approach to see if they would be interested in this?
This is not clarification.
It's not clarification, Councillor Perks.
This is not a.
I want to understand how this name was selected. He's put forward a motion. I want to understand the process. Which members of council did you approach to see if they were interested?
I'll
He's
just wait
nominating
for
one
the chair's
counselor.
ruling on that. I don't, is this clarification?
No,
rule,
it's
Madam
not.
Speaker?
It's not.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Davis to speak.
I want to be on work.
Councillor Davis? Councillor Davis to speak.
I just, you know, there has consistently been in this term of council a movement to keep off the key committees a number of people.
Like who?
Like me. Okay? I will be clear about that. And it's
come on,
not
please,
just
please
me.
stop
If you will let me
interrupting.
finish.
Stop interrupting.
Okay? Not just me. It's not about me. It is not about me. It is about respecting the diversity of both political views in this council chamber and Speaker
Councillor Karygiannis, please stop
and Councillor de
interrupting.
Bearmaker.
Councillor de Bearmaker, please.
And it shocks me that this mayor has continued to do this through this entire term. That he has decided that geographic representation or political representation or people he likes or doesn't like somehow always manages to color the appointments in this place. I have been here for 15 years and I've never seen it as bad. Really. There is no reason why Councillor Perks or Councillor Layton or any of the other councillors who have not just expertise but experience on the Works Committee should not be appointed to this committee. But this has been a pattern throughout this entire term, and I'm very sad. And I hope that next term there is an attempt to make this body representative on all of its committees. But the way you have kept people off consistently has been quite shameful. I'm sorry. This isn't about Councillor McMahon. It is about the process, and it is about a consistent pattern of exclusion that has been happening here in this chamber from day one.
Thank you. Councillor Mihevik.
Me, and then let's be like non-hitting.
Madam Speaker, I would like to move a motion to replace the name of Councillor Mary Margaret McMahon with Councillor Janet Davis. And, well, would you accept the nomination?
No, I know what's going to happen here, Joe. There should be a process.
Okay, Councillor Davis.
Okay, I will not. But
Okay.
you know, let me just say this, and I'll be 30 seconds. There is, I think there are times in life when it's important to assert your political authority, and there are times in life when it's important to be gracious. And we have 2 meetings left. And I think the analysis that some people have been left off for whatever reasons, political, personality, conflicts, this is 2 meetings left. I think it's good to be gracious. So if someone moves somebody else, I think it's not a bad thing to do. And it's independent of, I hope I'm saying this, independent of political persuasion. That's all I say.
Councillor Perks.
Thank you. I have a motion to strike Councillor McMahon and replace it with Councillor Layton. I think that deeds speak louder than words. I would like to read from the Toronto Star, December 26, 2017. If re-elected by Torontonians next year, Mayor John Tory says he will be more open to listening to and working with left-leaning downtown city councillors. Those are my remarks.
There's no evidence of that, that's for sure.
Okay, Councillor, please. Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Call the question.
Question's been called. Recorded vote. The question was called. Oh, okay. Just one sec, please. Councillor Carmichael Greb has called the question. So, if there are more speakers, okay. So just vote no. Just vote no. Vote no.
Councillor McMahon, please.
Councillor Karagianis, I would ask you please to not disrupt and please don't make comments like that.
The motion to call the question does not carry. The vote is 14 to 21.
Okay, so Mayor, you had a question to Councillor Perks?
No, I would have used that if I'd known the question was going to go. I'm happy just to speak at my turn.
Oh, okay. Councillor Shan to speak.
Declaration of vacancy has to happen at this meeting.
Not the declaration, not that.
Send it to the striking committee.
Councillor Shan.
It's here.
So, Madam Speaker, I was going to move the motion to send this particular decision to striking committee, but I'm told by the clerk's office that it cannot be done. Just the motion, because whether it's reality or perception, there is some sort of a cloudness around the process in which this is happening, and it's Councillor Chin Lee's vacancy, so we have some time to make this properly. The striking committee ultimately has the decision, so I was going to move it, but I don't understand why that part cannot be moved
Because
here.
we need someone for the next meeting. We want a counselor.
Has to be done.
This is for one meeting.
Okay,
No, but that's,
it's already been explained why.
I do understand. I do understand that, but traditionally we've waited until the person is replaced to do that, and for all other committees as well. So other committees also have similar quorum issues as well. So it's important to note that,
We have to do it now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Layton.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion. That motion 1 by Deputy Mayor Holliday be amended by deleting the name Councillor Mary Margaret McMahon and inserting the name Councillor Gordon Perks so that it now reads ... This is in absolutely no way a reflection of my deep respect I have for Councillor McMahon. While we have our differences, we enjoy. We also have not many. We have worked together on countless items. I also enjoy her company as a very capable chair of the Parks and Environment Committee. In fact, I'm saddened when our agenda is so light that we don't get to spend more time together trying to work through some interesting issues like biofuels that I think got both of us to bonk our head against the walls. What my concern is that this was there wasn't any attempt to ask other members of council whether or not they were interested in serving on this committee. I know Councillor McMahon is interested in the Public Works Committee because she has said so before to myself, as well as listed it on her preferences. But I don't know if it was her #1 preference. I sure know it was my #1 preference. I'm pretty sure it was Councillor Perks' #1 preference when listing it. And typically what happens is when you go through striking committee, you try to get people their #1 preference or their #1 or #2. There's 2 meetings left. There's a good reason why we should have better representation on the committee. I find Councillor Perks to be knowledgeable about a number of subjects, but one in particular is issues that are placed on the parks, on the Public Works agenda. And so it saddens me that there was absolutely zero attempt on the part of the mayor or the deputy mayor to at least come and ask other city councillors whether or not they might be interested in serving on that committee. Whether or not they're going to turn us down or not, there was zero attempt made. And this comes from, and I know that Councillor Perks already read it out, a mayor who has said he's going to attempt to build bridges with other political, perhaps, ideologies on council. Absolutely no attempt was made to build those bridges. This is a good opportunity to start now. I would suggest that you actually vote against Councillor Perks' motion and vote in favour of mine, because Councillor Perks is more deserving.
And Councillor Karygiannis, I'm not going to ask you again, but please stop interrupting and making those rude comments. You are interrupting.
None of us expect.
Councillor Karygiannis, what is your question? Clarification.
Councillor Layton, you said better representation. Are you inferring that representation that was put forward was not good enough? And this is why you're saying better? Your exact words were better representation.
That's not clarification. Councillor Layton, you don't have to answer. You don't have to answer. Councillor Burnside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, one thing I've learned here at City Council is you don't always get what you want. And there's a lot of sour grapes here. And if you want to talk about good candidates, I know Councillor Davis talked about diversity. Here we have a downtown councillor, a female, not a white male, that I've heard, well, actually we've seen in motions, not a white male, actually a female, which what we're trying, right there, Councillor Davis, is, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just totally wrong. And I wouldn't exactly say that Councillor McMahon is a big right-wing councillor. Middle of the road at best. And if you want to talk about credentials, I mean, I know Pewick isn't just about road safety, but a huge advocate for road safety and bike lanes and recycling and clean water. I mean, in my humble opinion, I think she's more than qualified, and we need to get over ourselves.
Councillor de Beermaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will support certainly Councillor Mary Margaret McMahon. In terms of the concern about geographic representation, again, I sometimes think we must live in different universes, because the last time I checked, Councillor McMahon doesn't sit on the North York or Etobicoke or Scarborough Community Council. She sits on the Toronto Community Council. And people might say, well, she's not downtown. Well, if you live in Scarborough or up close to the zoo and you look at the boardwalk, you sort of go, yeah, that's downtown. That's certainly within the Toronto Community Council area. I would describe her as left of Attila the Hun. She loves bikes. She loves trees. She has a treatment plant in her ward. She has the Blue Flag program in her ward. She has streetcars in her ward. I think she's a wonderful pick, and I think she will increase the diversity, gender diversity of that committee, so I'm very happy to support my colleague, Councillor McMahon. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to emphasize to Council the very significant quorum issues we've had at Public Works and Infrastructure, quite frankly, the entire term. The entire term. And quite frankly, it's been consistently one person who's not here today and is rarely at Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. We're lucky if they show up at all, late, leave early. And last meeting, when we were dealing with critical issues that we face as a city, including road safety and automated speed enforcement in school zones, we did not have quorum the whole morning. And Gord Perks was there. He was there, big as life, but you're not on the committee. So the issue is that it's actually not funny. It's a big problem because we're dealing with major contracts and major issues at this committee. It's always a very lengthy meeting. It needs somebody who's committed. And this is the truth, that there was not time to get this to striking committee. This is a time issue. And the last meeting, we were lucky to keep quorum going for a couple hours to get these issues dealt with. So we couldn't get this to striking committee, and here we are at Council with the opportunity to make sure that we will have a full complement with Councillor Lee resigning at our next PWEC meeting. And even when we had a full complement, we couldn't keep quorum at Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. It's a $2.6 billion portfolio, and we can't keep quorum. So what I will tell you, when Councillor McMahon served on this committee for the first 2 years of this term, she was there consistently. She was the vice chair. She was on time. She rarely even went to the washroom, and she was there to the bitter end of every meeting. And check the tapes if you don't believe it. She was also a major bike guru, a proponent and advocate for the cycling community consistently. She did not waver. And the bottom line is she's already up and running because she sat on the committee for 2 years and she's got the experience. We only have 2 meetings left. And this is the finale. This is her big swan song, leaving City Hall, and I think this is a great opportunity for her to come back and help us in the very end of our term. So I'll be supporting Councillor McMahon.
Councillor Cressy.
Well, thank you. And listen, I'm going to speak briefly, because it's the end of the day and an end of 3 long days, about next term as it relates to this. And I want to speak specifically, because what is in, if I could speak, please, is we're talking as part of this debate about downtown. So in this term, if we look at PWIC and we look at Public Works and what were the big contentious items that we debated at Public Works, Vision Zero and road safety, and the top 3 wards in the city for pedestrian and cyclist deaths are wards 20, 27, and 28. The Bloor Street bike lanes in wards 19 and 20. The Gardner in ward 28. The King Street pilot in wards 20 and 28. In fact, the largest items that we have dealt with at Public Works in this term are all in, not all of the items, but the largest items in the 3 downtown wards. This is the official plan designated downtown. And so as we look to next term, the vote today, we all know what it is. It's the end of 3 long days and we're having a debate. But as we look to next term, I think we all understand that the committee breakdown is a reflection of the administration's politics and choices. We understand that. But as we look to next term and we talk about good governance, with respect to Public Works, the biggest items we dealt with this term all took place in downtown, and not a single downtown councillor was part of that committee to help shepherd those debates. For good governance, for me to represent my constituents, for Councillor Troisi, formerly McConnell, Councillor Wong Tam, and 3 new councillors who are coming, if we're going to do right by the residents who live in these wards, then they need to be reflected on that committee. Otherwise, we are truly just playing politics. Thank you.
Councillor Shiner.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am extremely sympathetic to my colleague, Councillor Robinson, and the help that she's trying to get from Councillor Holliday to make sure that the next meeting goes forward. Unfortunately, at Planning and Growth Management Committee, we've had a number of occasions where the members weren't there. Some of them are solidly there all the time. Some of them never seem to make it on time, stuck in traffic or some rare excuse when you know month after month after month to be there and you have to get down in time. And to not have quorum not only puts the committee members and the issues of the staff at risk, but those that have come there to depute and deal with it. And it's not right. And what's being recommended now, with a lot of comments from my colleagues here, was one individual that could sit and was prepared to sit for 1 meeting and make sure they had quorum so we didn't have to call the mayor into the meeting. And it's become this huge debate. It's not a left-right debate or who can't get on the committees, as my colleague Councillor Cressy said, because you can't be on every committee. I don't know anyone that's on their committee now that said, I want to give it up for this other committee. They like the committees they're on. So from a meeting that I thought was working pretty well with everybody coming together, it's become at the end of it a major thing where everybody's arguing over one individual showing up at 1 meeting to make sure that they can do their business on quorum call, who is prepared to do it and has been identified as understanding the issues there. And I don't know why now at the end of a long day, maybe we're all tired, but you've got to make this left-right issue and what's going to happen next term and balancing the committees. Committees don't make any decisions. Departments write reports. Committees make recommendations.
To council.
Council makes decisions. And if there are items that council doesn't like that committee's dealt with, it has the right to remove that from the committee and bring it to council, where we all work collectively and spend multiple days looking at the issues and the recommendations of the committee. So I'm more than happy to support my colleague who said she'll stand for 1 meeting. She understands the issues. I think she'd be great at it. middle of the road, we'll get the meeting done, and come back at the next council meeting. If we appoint a new councillor, we'll appoint that person, I'm sure, to stand in that role. And I don't know really what the whole big debate is about for an hour long here, and the internal fight between people that I think usually find a way to get along together quite well.
Okay. Councillor McMahon.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Academy, and
God.
I really wish my brothers were watching this, because they'd be cheering all of you on, because they like supporters and detractors, and to rib me anytime I can. But I will tell you, it's no offense to current members of the committee, but this is not a joy to be on this committee. Actually, I've been on it before, and there have been struggles with quorum and chaos, but I'm happy to oblige and join it. And I do have a little bit more time on my hands than most of you, since I'm a big supporter of term limits. So, and I'm happy to write you a support letter for your next committee choice in 2019 as an outsider. Thank you.
Okay, last speaker, Mayor Tory.
Well, Madam Speaker, thank you. And I'm sorry, because I ordinarily would have supported calling the question, but Councillor Perks, in reading the quote that he did and just sitting down and leaving that as somehow gospel, when the quote, in fact, related to the next term, did provoke me into want to speak. And I also want to tell the truth about what happened here, because I think that when people hear the story, and I regret I'm going to have to make reference to a conversation I had with Councillor Paula Fletcher, when she's not here. But first of all, I want to start by just saying this. This notion that was published, somebody's column that was written, that we're sort of just here going through the motions for this meeting, and I think they started back in about March, and went through all the meetings that happened through to the end of July, I actually fundamentally don't accept. I mean, there's important business we did here today and yesterday, and there was important business last month, and there will be next month. And so I view what's going on as not some deal where we're just saying, well, let's give somebody a chance because it would be nice to do that and all this kind of thing. There's important business going on here, both at the committees and at council. In my view, this whole business of taking a hiatus as long as we do is ridiculous. And we should be here doing our job, in my view, this is my personal opinion, until mid-September. And then there's lots of time to campaign after that. The provincial election campaign only lasts 30 days. And I don't think any of us would say there's a shortage of time or a shortage of news we've heard about it in the first half of the campaign. So we have lots of time to do that. But having said that, that's the law and we have to deal with it. We also had a resignation that came about, and we didn't have time to convene the striking committee. So it ended up that a recommendation was made to the council, and of course my office is going to be involved in these kinds of things, as I would have been at the very beginning of the term. The second thing that I want to just speak to, because I've been the one, and look, I will say this, and I don't say it to self-promote myself, it's a fact that I don't think there's anybody that spends more time. There's some that spend as much in this building as I do, and as a result of the fact that I'm here, I've been available at 9:30 many a morning, many more mornings than I ever should have been, to go and fill in quorum, and it wasn't just at Public Works. And I think that speaks to something else we're going to have to come to grips with around here, whoever's going to be here in the next term. I hope to be, I hope all those who want to be are here. But we've got to take this seriously and decide that we're going to just show up to the meetings. There's the odd occasion where it's obviously beyond somebody's control. But I think the notion that people are just not there I think the taxpayers have every reason to be severely disappointed in that. But again, that's aside of this. Playing politics, which somebody referred to a moment ago, would have had me stick with the original recommendation I was given, which was to appoint another suburban councillor to Public Works to fill the spot that was there and to make sure there could be quorum. And frankly, then to make sure that that person, somebody from the suburbs, might be, if it was some big agenda that I had personally, then I'd be sure that I'd be able to probably, whoever it was. And I actually then had a conversation with Councillor Fletcher yesterday when she said to me, do you think it's fair that the City of Toronto and is not represented at all, and that places that don't have bike lanes and whatnot, and she went through talking about this, and I said, you know what, I think you're right. And I went back to my office, and we talked about it, and Councillor McMahon was the result of that. So we changed it, and it just shows you no good deed goes unpunished around here when people want to be chippy and partisan. When I actually did the right thing, put someone on who is a City of Toronto councillor, who I think has views on many of these issues that a lot of the people that are complaining this afternoon would agree with. And I will also say that in my consideration of her being a great candidate was that she'd served 2 years on the committee, knew the issues, and that she's not running for re-election and will have the time to devote to this, unlike other people around here, including myself, who are have added stresses of things to do with campaigns. So I just want to say I have absolute, complete confidence in Councillor McMahon. I think she will do the right thing on the issues that are going to be brought to that committee. She will attend the meetings, and I just am very regretful at the fact that at this meeting, on this subject, at this time of day, that people feel that they have to sort of cast aspersions in the manner that was done. We'll see what happens next term. We'll see who's here. I can't count on being here. We'll see who's here. And we'll see how those people, including myself, conduct themselves relative to things said in the Toronto Star or otherwise when they get here. But in today, I tried to do the right thing, and this is what you get. And I just say that's really regrettable, and we should do better. We have 2 more meetings left, and I hope we can do better at both of those in the context of quorum, in the context of not playing politics, all of us together, and in the context of actually just doing what is going to be right in all of the circumstances, which is all I was trying to do here by having that name put forward to be on the committee instead of the name that was going to be put forward, directly responsive to a request made to me by Councillor Fletcher, and she will confirm that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, if we can put the motions on the screen, please. Councillor Davis, please. You had an opportunity to speak, so now let's just vote. Councillor de Bearmaker, it applies to you too. No, enough. Enough. Okay. Okay, which motion? Put it up. Okay, motion 2 is on the screen. Okay, do we want a recorded vote? This is nothing personal.
Councillor Palacio, please.
The amendment does not carry. The vote is 8 to 27.
Motion 3. Recorded vote.
Councillor Mahevik and Councillor Palacio, please. Thank you.
The amendment does not carry. The vote is 11 to 24.
Oh, come on. It doesn't make any difference.
Well, it does to me. May we take that over again? My apologies.
It's so embarrassing you can't even have your name.
Okay, who wants to reopen it? Carried. Okay, let's revote. I don't know. Councillor Thompson. All in favor of reopening it? Carried. Okay, the motion's on the screen.
I thought we had voted on that already. Where was your subconscious speaking? On the left.
Councillor Cressy, Councillor Mihevc, thank you. Councillor Palacio.
The amendment does not carry. The vote is 9 to 26.
Okay, the next motion. Motion 1 by Councillor Holliday, recorded vote.
Councillor Shiner, please. Councillor Davis.
Councillor Cressy, please.
The motion carries unanimously, 35 in favor.
Our next item is item is amended on favor. Pardon? Recorded vote on the recorded vote. It's just the item is amended. It's God. Unbelievable.
Councillor Davis, please.
The item is amended, carries 34 to 1.
It's the amendment, like. Okay, we're going to continue now. Page 2, CC 41.2, member appointments to the FCM. Councillor Holliday, you held that item down as well.
You're okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I'm advised, the next FCM meeting is imminent. It's important to appoint 2 members, and I believe there's a motion on this. That would be Councillor Cole and Councillor Kelly. Thank you. Who are continuing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for reminding me.
Okay, is everyone okay with that motion? On favor? Carried. Our next one is on page 3, CC 41.4, appointment to the Toronto Community Housing. Councillor Fletcher held it. Is Councillor Fletcher still here? Pardon? Okay, but I'm just wondering, did Councillor Fletcher leave? Okay, Councillor Troisi, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to ask a couple of questions, only because a few of my constituents have been applying for these types of boards. In terms of the outreach strategies, can you explain how you recruit tenants or possible board members for the Tenant Directors Board?
Through the Speaker, we developed a process jointly with public appointments.
Hold on. Your mic's not on. No, I think they have to turn it on.
I got it, thanks. Through the Speaker, we developed a process jointly for this interim process with public appointments and Tenants First. And through that process, we held 4 information sessions for tenants at Toronto Employment and Social Services locations. In addition to giving information about how to apply for the board and the roles and responsibilities, we also offered assistance through the test staff to submit applications online, and as well interview skills training for tenants who are selected to be interviewed.
And what type of information would a candidate need? Would they need a letter of interest, a CV?
So we have an online application on the Public Appointments website. So all candidates, whether they're public members or the tenant directors, were asked to submit an application through that process. Public Appointments staff then reviews their application and does an assessment. That assessment is then provided to the nominating panel along with their application. The nominating panel reviews that and then makes a decision as to who they'd like to select and ultimately bring in for interview and then ultimately appoint, or bring for recommendation for appointment.
So if a candidate didn't follow one of those steps, then they would be disqualified, correct?
Yes, they would be.
Okay. And just in terms of the measures taken to ensure diversity on the board, do you feel the board is diverse or has enough representation of diversity on the board?
Well, I would say that it is diverse, although we don't have specific targets, but I can say that all members of the public applying to a city board, agency, or tribunal are asked to complete a voluntary confidential diversity survey as part of the application, and this was the case with both the public members and the tenant directors. The information that we get is shared with the nominating panel to assist the city in achieving its objectives around diversity and inclusion in public appointments, and that's as per our public appointments policy.
And I know your division has been working really hard to be inclusive. Would you say that we're at a better place today in terms of diversity than in previous boards, with the previous boards?
What I can say is that we have a 92% response rate with our confidential diversity survey. We publish that information on our website quarterly, so it is for the public. Some spaces we are doing better, and in some there's some room for improvement, which is why collecting this data is very helpful for us to develop outreach strategies and look at ways where we can improve when we could be doing better.
Great, good job, thank you.
Fletcher to speak.
Yes, I just have a motion, Speaker, on this, and I'm happy with who's being put on the board. But since we're, and I know we challenged a little bit with ensuring that our housing corporation is far more aligned with the city than in the past. So I think it would be helpful if we had the new members who are going to be on the board come in to have a briefing from the city about our Tenants First strategy and the related implementation reports. And the staff have written this for me. I know they'll probably hear things when they're on the board, but it would be helpful so that they understand that as the shareholder, this is what we're doing, and they hear it clearly. So that is just the only thing I'd like to add and approve the members. I think they've done a good job in selecting people, and that this would be a good thing to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Any other speakers to this item? Seeing none, I think is that one amendment, which is on the screen. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. It's item as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item will be members' motions on page 3, MM 41.18. Mediation and relevant zoning bylaw amendment 2522 to 2542, Keel Street, moved by Councillor Frank DeGiorgio, seconded by Councillor John Campbell. Are there any questions of staff?
Are we going to defer this till next meeting?
I see Councillor Nunziata. Okay, thank you, Councillor Nunziata. I'll just put on your microphone when I find your name here. There it is. And please go ahead. Questions of staff?
Yes, I have questions first before I move my motion. So questions to staff.
Sorry, Councillor Nunziata, we have a point of order by Councillor DeGiorgio. Hold on just 1 second.
She's releasing the item.
No, I'm not. I have questions to staff.
Thank you.
I just said it, Felicia.
Okay, my apologies, Councillor Nunziata. I haven't started your time, so go ahead. Questions of staff?
I have a question to staff. So at the last council meeting, we moved a couple of motions pertaining to this item, and which after a number of discussions, we reworded the motions, and it was satisfactory to all the parties, and we moved it. But this motion here was at Community Council, and we ruled it out of order. But on this motion, can you tell me if this motion, what this motion means, first of all, and second of all, what impact would it have on city staff when they're at the hearing?
So if this motion is passed, legal services staff representing the city at the hearing will advise the tribunal as directed by council I would recommend that the section number reference be removed because it's not the correct section. The other thing I should say about it, though, is that the motion suggests that there was something improper about the approval of the site plan, and in this case there was not. The site plan was appealed to the board made a decision, then staff prepared the site plan agreement, it was executed, it was registered on title by city staff, following which the final order of the OMB was issued. However, I just want to be clear, that is the normal process. The OMB made the decision, then the site plan agreement was prepared, then it was registered, then the final order was issued. So that's proper. The other thing I should clarify is that site plan is not one of the issues before the board in the hearing. The hearing is about the condo approval.
So the hearing is based on the condo registration for the condo.
That's correct.
Correct. Now, and that hearing is in June?
Yes.
Okay. So by proving that, if we approve this motion, it's actually going to put the staff in a position that, you know, the site plan has been approved, so it's really going to put the staff in an awkward position, an embarrassing position, where the site plan's been approved and this motion was passed by council.
It would be somewhat awkward to present this at the hearing because it is unrelated to the subject matter of the
Right. So we would really look stupid. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Next on our list to ask questions of staff, Councillor Shiner, to ask questions of staff.
I guess to the solicitor who's representing us. What is the subject matter of the hearing?
The condo approval.
So the registration.
That's the last matter requiring approval. And yes.
This is dealing with arguing about the condo approval at the LPAT
Yes.
and saying we don't want it approved. And the concern is from my colleague in regards to the approval of the development. And the last item that he's concerned about is the site plan, which permitted restrictions on parking at certain times. Am I correct, generally?
It's my understanding that the councillor does have some concerns about the parking. However, that's not the subject matter of the hearing.
The issue then of the site plan permitted some restrictions on parking. Am I correct?
I'm going to suggest that the chief planner answer the more specific questions about the site plan approval itself.
I'll try and do this quickly. But
I know he's here and prepared to do that.
Through the speaker, I don't have all the specifics in front of me. We're dealing with this one single motion. The previous actions of council offered the councillor remedies to go to the OMB to make submissions about the condominium approval, which is currently before the OMB. The OMB has ruled on the zoning. It has dealt with the parking matters through the zoning bylaw, and it has ruled on the site plan approval. So the only thing left at the OMB is the condominium approval. And in the previous direction of City Council, there were some advisories that were included in that recommendation that could, in other words, some submissions that could be made to the board, and the board could consider those in reference to the condominium matter that was in front of it.
So is it possible that the instructions given by council to our solicitor and planning staff at the board were not adopted in the board's decision, which has caused some of these problems?
It's possible. The board is the decision-making body, not council. The board's standing in the shoes of council in this instance.
So back to our solicitor then. I understand my colleague's frustration. So he doesn't want to allow the condominium to get registered, which will allow, I guess, the developer to get out and finish off his deal. Who's getting hurt most if we don't allow the condominium to be registered? The developer or the purchasers that are still living and, I guess, paying rent on units that they should have closed on?
I can't really answer that
question. However, I will confirm that, in fact, it is difficult for the residents because they are paying rent rather than paying down their mortgages.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shiner. Next on the list of questions of staff is Councillor DiGiorgio.
Okay, the first question is of the solicitor. Two questions, Madam Solicitor. You are aware, I hope, that I am supporting registration of the condo. Is that correct?
Yes, I can't argue with you there.
Okay. And secondly, I expressed as recently as this morning a concern that, in my view, a site plan agreement being registered on title as a condition precedent to site plan approval is different from a site plan agreement registered on title subsequent to site plan approval. And it's my view, as I expressed, that I believe the site plan agreement was registered prior to site plan approval by the board.
So, Speaker, through you, following the discussion I had with the councillor earlier today, I did confirm with my staff that the OMB decision predated the site plan agreement by several years, and that it was only the final order that came after, and that is the normal process.
But
the order was withheld until the agreement had been
the order
signed
to
and registered
approve
on
the
title.
final site plan was withheld until after. That's how I interpret what was done. But let's leave that aside for a moment. Sorry, my mind is a little bit boggling here. Greg Lintern, are you aware that on April 17th, one of the recommendations adopted by this council was this, and I read, that city planning staff bring forward any and all necessary changes to the site plan agreement registered on title to the next council meeting to ensure that section 6A6G of the former North York City bylaw was complied with. I know it's not a fair question. All I'm saying is that report I expected would be here. It's not here. And so part of my motion was in anticipation of that report not being here. So, that being said, I'll finish with my questions and I'm on to speak.
Thank you, Councillor DiGiorgio. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go to speakers. Councillor Nunziata, you held the item, MM 41.18. Sorry.
I'm going to move receipt. For members of council, as you know, we've been dealing with this item for 4 years now. People moved in 4 years ago. They're living in the condo. And every council meeting when these motions come forward, we've been approving them, and at the last council meeting we said enough is enough. The problem is that this is not in my ward, but these residents that live in this condominium, that have lived there for 4 years, first of all, they can't even vote because they're not registered. They're calling me. All of them are calling me because they're frustrated because they can't get any answers from the city. They have spoken, their solicitor has spoken to our solicitor. We've been trying to get this through. The hearing is in June. Enough is enough. We need to deal with this. We can't keep delaying it. And I understand the frustration of the local councillor, but it's been 4 years. 4 years, you have to let it go. So I'm moving receipt, and the only reason I'm moving receipt is I'm here to help the residents that live in that building, because we, as a council, are responsible for that. We can't just ignore it, and that's my motion.
If I could just stop you for a minute. There's a point of privilege by Councillor DiGiorgio. Just
to someone who claims that they are helping the residents in that building. I was the one that urged the building commissioner to allow people to move into that building, notwithstanding that there are questions as to the validity of that building permit that was issued. I was the one that said, please allow them to move in. So you tell me who's helping people.
Thank Councillor DiGiorgio. Thank you. I'm not sure if that's quite a point of privilege, but I'll...
have a copy of the letter from their solicitor, and in their letter, they're advising everyone that lives there to call Councillor Nunziata.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Next on the speakers list is Councillor DeGiorgio. Hold on 1 second while I turn on your mic. The floor is yours, Councillor DeGiorgio. I'll hold your time till you set up there.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Do you want the overhead on?
Deputy
via
Speaker,
the
yes,
clerks?
please.
Okay. We'll give you 1 more second, Councillor DeGiorgio, just on the screen.
Yeah. Let me begin my comments with a really a point of privilege. I have a letter in front of me that I intend to send to the residents in that building, and it is in the hands of the Integrity Commissioner right now, asking for her input, but I'm going to read roughly the letter that I intend to put out. Now, there is a communication that I handed into the clerk that was a letter that was sent by Visto Condominium to all the residents in the building. I asked it to be circulated. I'm sure you don't have it. And so the rights that most of you have don't extend to me when it comes to you have it. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah. So there has been a letter sent by Visto Condominium to all the residents implying and alleging political interference. So here's my letter. I understand that residents in the building have received a communication from Visto Condominium claiming that political interference by Etobicoke York Community Council resulted in the unfair treatment of Visto Condominium. The purpose of Community Council is to intervene and ensure that all affected parties are treated fairly, including the new building residents. The purpose of Community Council is to ensure that any zoning bylaw amendment that is passed by Council conforms with the official plan. That's why we have community councils. And we have community councils that talk about fence exemptions. We make sure that people have an opportunity to come to community council to make sure they're all fairly treated. My community did not have the opportunity, for whatever reason, of a statutory community council meeting. Now, Bill 139, if any of you read it with any great detail, basically is a legal review of what happened at 2522. And it basically tracks everything that happened. And it says from here on in, Bill 139, we will not allow that kind of nonsense to happen in the future. But that doesn't do anything for my community, nor the residents in the new building. So what I'm trying to say is, and I'll put this on the... Can you put the overhead on, Madam Speaker? There are a number of conditions that I asked be...
Point of order, Councillor Fragadakis.
MM 41.18, mediation and the relevant zoning bylaw amendment. I'm just wondering, what does this have to do? Can we speak to the item? It's
Can you
all
let
5
me
o'clock.
finish, please?
I'm on a point of order, Councillor DeGiorgio. If you don't mind, please don't interrupt me. I wasn't interrupting you. I'm standing up on a point of order.
You did interrupt.
Can we
I was
actually
reading
just
a letter that is a point of privilege. I'm not completed finishing the letter.
I'm on a point of order.
And my privilege supersedes your point of order.
You're not on a privilege.
I am reading a letter on a point of privilege.
Councillor Fragadakis, it's better just to let him finish.
How long does a point of privilege last?
It's going to be finished in 150 seconds, less. There were a number of conditions that we imposed as a council, one of which was there shall be at least one parking space dedicated for visitors to the building during the day. At least just one was all I asked for. Second, explore options so that we can provide more parking spaces for visitors. Thirdly, mediation as an alternative resolution system or mechanism. Those were the conditions. On a personal note, and I end with this, on a personal note, I want to emphasize that I was instrumental in expediting the issuance of a building permit to permit people to move into their units. I was the one that pushed for people to move in. I was the one that was getting the calls. And in my view, had the ordinary fair procedures in accordance with Bill 139, been followed by the applicant, any and all unnecessary delays and costs could have been avoided. There was no need for delays. All that had to be done was proper procedures being followed. There are two ways to get a building permit: through a complete building permit system or an incomplete. The complete building permit system says, here are my plans, I want a building permit. Give me an unconditional building permit. I have these plans. They've been approved by the Ontario Municipal Board. That is not what happened. They went through what's called an incomplete building permit system. They said, here are my plans, but I can't really get the permit. So let me have a conditional building permit. And I'll get a permit after the building's built. And that's what happens. They submit their final plans after the building's built. Now, anybody that submits final plans after a building is built, I guarantee is going to be in compliance with what's built.
Thank you.
So that's what I'm wrestling with. And so here's what the visitor parking on the site is.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my motion, Madam Speaker, never mind.
Your motion is the member's motion that's there, Councillor. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Jamari.
Councillor DiGiorgio is a very conscientious person and a very good community worker and has represented his ward with dignity. He has fought this development since the beginning and has always striven to provide leadership in the community with respect to this development and all others. Yes, you can fault him for being too attached to the issue, but as it happens, he was faced with a myriad of problems that came at him and at the community, and he did his best to try to mitigate those factors. I understand that some of you are perhaps thinking that he's gone a bit too far. But I believe that he's doing that because he cares so much about the way that this was brought forward, about the way that some people build without community input, and flagrantly sometimes. You certainly can't fault him for caring. I, for one, will be supporting him. But I understand, Speaker, when you spoke, what you said, and the excellent questions that you asked, you helped put a framework around this issue that was needed. Okay. Some of what is needed in the community now is to understand that the local councillor is not, in fact, wasting time asking people not to be registered. He wants the condo to be registered, and in fact, he moved that at the last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on the motion, if we can put the motion on the screen, please. Okay, recorded vote.
The receipt motion carries 18 to 16.
Okay, thank you. Next item is on page 3, MM 4126, 4841, 4881 Yonge Street, Councillor Shiner. It's your item. Do you have questions to staff?
No, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions to staff? No? Can we? Okay. Councillor Shiner, would you like to speak?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
I held this item first to inquire of staff as to its nature, which they responded to me, and I appreciate. And I held it the second time in particular because at the last Community Council meeting, in the middle of a deputation from residents in Councillor Burnside's ward, arguing over some fences, there was an issue on the agenda in regards to an item in my ward that Councillor Fillion didn't want to deal with. So he abruptly walked out, broke quorum, and we couldn't finish the meeting. And we waited as Councillor Cole tried to rush back from an event that he had and came in, I think, 2 minutes too late to be there for the official quorum as we were on the phone with him. So unfortunately, we didn't get to finish our agenda, Councillor Wong Tam, when you count the items that we dealt with or didn't, because we had a member that walked out because he didn't want to deal with something.
Sorry to hear that.
So I felt...
I'm glad to rebut what Councillor Shiner is saying, but do we really want to discuss a completely different agenda item that happened at North York Community Council? If we do, I'm glad to speak to that, what Councillor Shiner is speaking to, but that's not what's before us.
Yeah. So I'm speaking to the fact that
Yes, thank you, Councillor.
I held the item further to make sure that Councillor Burnside, who suffered as I did on items, and other members of council who couldn't have their items finished, at least had the pleasure of making sure Councillor Fillion stayed at this meeting on an item that was of importance to him. And now I'm more than happy to deal with it.
So you're just releasing it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councillor Fillion, he's just releasing. Did you want to speak?
I know. Well, yeah, just that it doesn't affect me how this happens one way or another, but it certainly would have greatly inconvenienced RioCAD if this hadn't gone through. And they were, you know, I wasn't their biggest fan at first, but they were absolutely fantastic in negotiating a child care center and a family resource center, a total of about 10,000 square feet for 99 years. How often do we see that? For 99 years at no cost to the city, no taxes, no nothing, for 99 years. And if this had been held up, or just even holding this up a day, delays their construction because they needed their site plan executed. In order to do that, they had to satisfy their Section 37. So all this was something written by the legal staff so that the Section 37 was satisfied so that RioCAD could get their site plan. So it's kind of unfortunate that Councillor Shiner plays games with it. Doesn't affect me, but it does affect other people.
Oh, come on. Let's just vote on it. Councillor Shiner. Okay. Okay, Councillor Shiner, you released it. Let's just vote on it.
I will, but when you talk about playing games and being straight, there was a Section 37 agreement, and this was an amendment to it, which the council tried to get.
This is not a
There was
point
no
of...
holding it up here, and it wasn't playing games.
Okay, let's vote. Do we want a recorded vote? Councillor Fillion, do you want a recorded vote? Oh. Councillor Arjamari?
Thank you. I had just 2 minutes ago finished telling our new councillor how wonderful it is to be in North York and how our community council meetings are collegial.
Yes, they are. Yeah, mostly. Let's vote. Come out to Scarborough. Thank you for Scarborough. We got it. We're even looking at but this is, we're going to, point of order, we're going to talk about how many items we have in each.
Okay, on the motion, on favor? Carried. Well, I asked and no, okay, recorded vote. Councillor Fletcher?
Councillor Kelly, please. Councillor Perks.
Councillor Cressy, please.
The item is adopted unanimously, 34 in favor.
Councillor McMahon?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm sorry to do this, but I have to reopen MM 41.17 for a quick flash to add an extra paragraph that didn't go in that our financial department wants us to put in.
Okay, on favor, carried.
Yeah, technical amendment right there. Thank you for your support.
There's the amendment on MM 4117. On favor, carried. Item is amended. On favor, carried. Now, our last item, members' motion, is MM 4140. Councillor Carmichael Greb, you asked to reopen that? Yes. So it's reopened, so what did you want to do with it?
I believe Councillor Pasternak has an amendment.
Okay. Councillor Pasternak, you have an amendment?
Yes, and I thank my colleague for agreeing to the provisions of the amendment. I'd like to put it on the screen. It amends the original member's motion so that it accommodates the needs of both the wards, north and south of the Avenue Road Bridge.
Okay, the amendment's on the screen. Is everybody okay with it?
You saw this.
You showed me the top part.
Is everybody okay? Do we, on favor? Carried. Item is amended. On favor? Carried. So those are the last items. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'd like to ask Council's indulgence, please, to open PW 29.6 Motion 2A, which lost because it didn't get 2/3, and I've spoken to a number of councillors, and I think they thought I was trying to restrict their ability rather than give councillors a choice in their community councils, and I'd like to ask the council to reopen that, which is on the motion to...
Okay, so Councillor Fletcher is moving to reopen.
Yes, I am. It was a simple majority.
Okay, what is it? PW?
Yes, I need 2/3.
29.6. Okay, we're opening PW 29.6. Okay, recorded vote. Councillor Fletcher is asking that we open PW 29.6, Public Works.
Councillor Davis, please, and Councillor Matlow.
The motion to reopen carries 27-8.
Yes.
just upstairs when I heard this and I came running down. The same people aren't even in the chamber. Some people have left. So I'm not sure why. Is this now we reopen any vote that we're not happy with? I'm not clear on what's happening.
How's it in order?
This is completely unacceptable.
No, we're reopening the item. Councillor Fletcher has asked, and we moved the motion and we voted on it. Just like Councillor McMahon moved to reopen an item to make an amendment. So it is in order.
So there's an amendment? There's an amendment?
So, Councillor Fletcher, you need to move the motion again, so we can then we can vote on it. Yes, we'll wait till Councillor Fletcher moves the motion. Councillor Fletcher.
It's still there. The City Council amend the council procedures to delegate to community councils the authority to waive petition and polling requirements for traffic calming measures. And this does not mean it has to happen. It means it allows for a choice whether to do that or not, Speaker. So, to be clear.
Okay.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Councillor DiCiano.
So I'm confused now how we can just re-vote on the exact same item we just voted on an hour ago.
Yes, I just explained it, Councillor DiCiano.
So
Councillor Fletcher has the right to reopen it, just like any other item that we reopen.
Okay, well, I've got an amendment to her motion.
Yeah, okay, put your name on the screen. Councillor Holliday. Okay, come on, we want to get this last item done, please.
Can I say we opened it, Madam Speaker? I just want to say that this is deplorable, and I think this is one of the most arrogant things we can do as a council, to dismiss this notion of public polling. Look, if you read the 2010 policy on traffic calming, it explains why we go through this process, because it's one of the steps of public consultation to ensure that people that are affected by any changes in the road environment around them are adequately consulted and they have an opportunity to weigh in. I can't understand why we would be so knee-jerk to rush to do something and at the same token dismiss somebody that might wake up one morning and see road crews ripping up the road in front of their house with no opportunity to have input or very minimal opportunity to have input. So I think, if we head down this path, we're going to have an equally angry group of people who have been affected by changes that have no idea that they're coming. We have a process here to deal with traffic safety issues. We passed some amendments today to take some time off of that. And I think there's further reports coming that are going to take even more time off of it. But right now what we're doing is basically chopping out a democratic component of the process. Go read the traffic calming policy there. It explains why there's rationale in doing this. We've done it for years. I don't understand why we would simply take it out. And, to turn around and say, well, maybe we'll just do 25%, that's a fraud. If you're just to eliminate any public consultation and just do it in a draconian way is what we're trying to do right here. We're putting a community council as judge and jury in all of this and just ignoring the concerns of the people in the neighborhood. Look, I asked the general manager a specific question about the systematic consideration of traffic in a neighborhood. You make one change and it has an impact. You change one street, it can impact the street beside it. And if we're going to dismiss any impact of the actions that we have because we're rushing to do something, I think that is dead wrong. We should have that opportunity to consult with people in a structured way, and there's a good rationale to have this in our process right now, and cutting out is wrong.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor
I simply want to indicate that this is not to take away from the fact of a councillor understanding and speaking to everybody on the street, and the implication that somehow I don't do my job if I don't have a poll. I don't think that's right.
Councillor
So that's all.
Fletcher, thank you. This is the last item, and there has been members of council that have already spoken on this item, so I think it's best if we just re-vote on it. That's the reason we, well, okay, Councillor Robinson, put your name up to speak if you want to speak. Councillor DiCiano.
Just like Councillor Fletcher just had a point of order.
Councillor Robinson, what's your point of order?
So Gary Crawford had his Environment Day tonight. This was a very important issue to Gary, and now we've reopened it, and he has no ability to participate in this. I think that's completely inappropriate. He stayed late and missed the first half hour of his Environment Day event, so he could be part of this debate. He voted on it, and now an hour later, while he's at his Environment Day event, which none of us can influence those calendar dates, he is not participating in this process. I think that is procedurally incorrect and inappropriate.
Thank you. Councillor DiCiano to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a motion, and so I want to start. That's not it. But I want to start by, as it comes on, by stating that I don't think a lot of us are against what Councillor Fletcher is trying to achieve. But basically my motion says that City Council amend motion 4 by Councillor Fletcher by deleting the words petition and, so that it now reads as follows. The City Council amend the council procedures to delegate to community councils the authority to waive polling requirements for traffic calming measures. And the reason why I've made that small change that I think is it's in line with yeah, good. So, and the reason why I say this, and I know that Councillor Holliday here is looking at me, because it's the democratic process has to remain, okay? And we need people to be able to say whether or not they want their councillor and their street to participate in something like this. With respect to the polling, if the people want it and the polling doesn't, the warrants don't suffice, big deal. So get rid of the polling. I got no problems with that, but the petition has to stay. And I'm looking at Councillor Fletcher, who's supporting that. So I hope everyone else can as well.
Councillor Campbell.
So in my ward, we had a community meeting for traffic calming on 2 streets. On a Saturday morning, dozens and dozens of people showed up in favor of traffic calming. When we went to a poll, it didn't pass. So under this rule, a councillor can go ahead and put in traffic calming against the wishes of the majority of the residents. And that, well, you can do that. You can do that anyway. But this lowers the bar. And I think, you know, out of respect for residents, out of respect for democracy, out of respect for people's viewpoints about their own neighborhood, this is their neighborhood and their street. I was in a room with 70 people who wanted traffic calming. We did the poll. It lost. Less than 50%, not maybe 60%. People have accepted the results. That's the democratic process. This is not particularly democratic. This means that a councillor with his pals on community council, and that's the way it works. We all support the local councillor because nobody wants to be independent of everybody else. We support the local councillor. This means that a councillor can ram the traffic calming measures. Not that traffic calming measures are bad, but it's against the democratic process. It's contrary to what our citizens expect of us. So I do not support this. I do support traffic calming measures where warranted and where agreed to by the population.
Come on, can we just vote?
I support Councillor DiCiano. It's just great.
Okay, let's vote. Councillor Layton, let's vote. Oh, Councillor
Thank you.
Layton.
I know. I'll spend my 5 minutes, but I'll say I'm going to be very brief.
We only have a few minutes.
I just wanted to quickly say I'm going to echo Councillor Robinson had suggested that there is some unfortunateness around how this was reopened with respect to some missing members, and I'll echo that because when you do stick around in a meeting and when the item that you waited for is over and then you rush off to a meeting like I should have done about an hour ago, having it reopened, if anything changes as a result, or not having your vote reflected on there, I'm a little uncomfortable with as well. Having said that, I was supportive of Councillor Fletcher's motion before, and I would like to remain supportive of that. And part of it is because of just of the actual. It's the flip side of the argument that Councillor Campbell just made. Our polling system is just inaccurate. You get polls that come in, and like I've been at an old house I lived in. No, but you get to stuff the ballot box then. At an old house I lived in, I got eight different ballots for some patio that I was on because of previous tenants that were still on the roll, the owners of the house that didn't live there because I was renting at the time. And I could just as easily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, shove them all in the mailbox and done. Which is why the policy, and at least my policy has been, even if a poll fails, you give the community the opportunity to go out and do a petition. And so the petition can go out and overturn a poll, which...
Okay, thank you. No, I know. I'm just trying to rush.
Okay.
We want to take
say I'm not quite done yet. I will sit down, but just to suggest that our petition our polling process isn't exactly the most democratic tool in the box.
Okay. Councillor Robinson to speak.
Yeah, again, I would like to just say Councillor Karygiannis actually is the genesis of this report, and he's not in the chamber and not here to participate in it. So again, I want to express my concern about what just happened here in the chamber, that we reopened an item, and I'm certainly going to use this strategy going forward on other motions and other items that when I don't like the outcome, I will simply reopen them, ask to reopen them a couple hours later with different makeup in the chamber. So I'm very disappointed to see this. I have to say I'm voting against it just on principle alone and the way this has been maneuvered and dealt with, because it's highly inappropriate. So as much as I'd like to support it, I'll be voting against this. I also believe deeply in public consultation. I ran on civic engagement and public consultation, and to me, the more the merrier. Do we have to streamline it? Do we have to fast track this? Absolutely. It has to be done more effectively and efficiently. But I do think consultation is at the heart of what Toronto is about and our neighbourhoods, and we should continue to engage our residents.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
That all counts.
Sorry.
Yes, Councillor DiCiano, you had...
Yeah, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, but I'm withdrawing my motion because it's obviously late and I got a little confused with respect to my thoughts with the polling requirements and the traffic study in the counts, which was what I believed I was addressing,
okay,
and I'm
so
not.
You're withdrawing.
I'm withdrawing my
okay,
motion.
on favor, carried. Okay, let's vote on Councillor Fletcher's motion. Recorded vote. Okay, councillors.
Councillor. Councillor Mallow, please.
The motion carries 23-10.
So that's the last vote. Item is amended. On favor? Carried. Councillor Wong Tam, you have a motion to introduce certain bills.
Yes, I do, Madam Speaker. That leave be granted to introduce bills 601 to 663 inclusive.
Sorry, Councillor Wong-Tam, we'll have to come, you'll have to redo that. It's, Councillor Shiner has to do his first. Councillor Shiner, you have a motion.
Thank you. I was waiting for a microphone so I could speak. That committee and council consider submissions in making a decision on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments. Considered submissions.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, Councillor Wong-Tam again.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. That leave be granted to introduce Bill 601 to 663 inclusive. Thank you.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? Recorded vote.
I did it even better the second time around.
What's that?
Thank you.
Councillor Davis, please. And Councillor Perks.
Councillor Hillian, please. Councillor Fragadakis, please.
Councillor Fillion and Councillor Fragadakis, please. Councillor Fragadakis, your vote, please.
Councillor Robinson, please.
The motion to introduce the bills carries unanimously, 35 in favor.
Shall these bills be passed and declared as a bylaw? Recorded vote.
Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, please. Councillor Davis, Councillor Shan, Councillor Perks. Councillor Bailao, please. Councillor Shan, thank you.
Councillor Fillion, please. Councillor DiCiano, please. Councillor Robinson, please. Councillor DiCiano and Councillor Robinson, please.
Councillor Fillion, please. Councillor DiCiano, please. Councillor Fillion, your vote, please.
The motion to enact the bills carries unanimously, 35 in favor.
Councillor Kelly, you have a motion regarding absentees.
Yes, Speaker, that City Council excuse the absence of Councillor Denzelman and Wong from the May 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, 2018 City Council meeting.
All those in favor, recorded vote.
Councillor DeGiorgio, please. Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong-Tam, thank you. Councillor Bailao.
Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Fragadakis, Councillor Cole, Councillor Robinson.
Councillor Robinson, please.
The motion to approve absentees carries 32-3.
Councillor Layton, you have a motion to introduce the confirming bill.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. That leave be granted to introduce a bill to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion the proceedings of City Council Meeting 41 on May 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 2018.
Shall leave be granted to introduce this bill? Recorded vote.
Councillor DeGiorgio, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Wong-Tam, Councillor Layton, Councillor Davis,
pushed
please.
it. It was pushed.
Councillor Bailao, please.
Councillor De Bearmaker, Councillor Mihevc.
Hold on, there's one more vote.
Fillion. Councillor Burnside, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Robinson.
No. Councillor Burnside and Councillor Fletcher, please.
motion to introduce the confirming bill carries unanimously, 34 in favor.
Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw recorded vote?
Councillor McMahon, Councillor Layton, Councillor Davis, please. Councillor Perks, Councillor Bailao.
Councillor Mihevik, please. Councillor DiCiano, Councillor Cole, Councillor Robinson, Councillor DiCiano, please.
The motion to enact the confirming bill carries unanimously, 35 in favor.
Okay, thank you, members of council. Thank you to staff. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.